Chapter 9:12.1 After another, the wild beasts charged out and crashed into the Southly Fire Formation without any fear of death. There were also quite a number of savage beasts who ignited their beast blood. Xiao Qin directly self-detonated. The shockwave from the explosion struck the fire formation, creating sinister cracks. The 16 thought-shattering barbaric beasts gathered together and spat out brutal flash at the same time, bombarding the fire formation. Immediately, the entire fire formation began to shake violently, as if there was an earthquake. The earth trembled and the mountains shook. More and more cracks appeared on the south-parting fire formation. Seeing this, the 6 combos Celestial Supremacy put his hands together and shouted. South-parting 3 peaks, Mountain Soul. All of a sudden, the 3 peaks started to shake, and a shadow flew out from each peak. As soon as the 3 phantoms flew out, they immediately transformed into 3 vermilion bird phantoms, their bodies condensed from illusory flames. The 6 combination Celestial Venerate changed his hand seal, and 7 million fire talismans immediately flowed into the body of the first vermilion bird. The vermilion bird's eyes were originally empty, but after fusing with the fire talisman, they immediately became fierce. After absorbing the 7 million flame symbols, the vermilion bird's aura reached the peak of the thought-demolishing level. Under the control of the 6 combination Celestial Supremacy, the vermilion bird rushed out of the fire formation as if it did not have a physical body. Everywhere it passed, wild beasts were burned to ashes by the flames on the vermilion bird's body. One of the thought-shatterer beasts roared as it charged at the vermilion bird and self-detonated. The resulting shockwave caused the vermilion bird to explode into 7 million flame symbols. However, as the fire talisman condensed, the vermilion bird materialized once more. Rising from the ashes, it charged toward the group of savage beasts once more. Immediately, a large number of savage beasts cried out in agony and fell. Fellow Taoists, if you are as fast as me and fuse the fire talisman into the body of the vermilion bird's shadow, you will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate said to Miao Yen and Ning Fan through telepathy. Venerate wise words nodded and pointed at the vermilion bird phantom on the second peak. 6 million fire runes merged into the body of this vermilion bird. With a tap of her finger, the second vermilion bird flew out of the fire formation and began slaughtering the 8 million savage beasts. Ning Fan also activated his ability and fused the 1 million fire talismans into the body of the third vermilion bird. Then, he controlled the third vermilion bird to launch a counterattack against the group of beasts. The 3 vermilion birds were almost immortal. Even if they were killed by savage beasts, they could be reborn from the ashes. Under the combined attacks of these 3 vermilion birds, close to 1 million savage beasts had perished in just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. First generation, second ancestor, and fourth ancestor coldly looked at the scene of the wild beast dying. They didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. To them, the life of a savage beast was as insignificant as a feather, and it was not worth their attention at all. What they were concerned about was to what extent Ning Fan's barbarian marks would improve after the death of these savage beasts. Corpse ashes continued to fall from the sky. Every breath, countless savage beasts would lose their lives to the attacks of the 3 vermilion birds. Every time a savage beast died, its blood chi would be absorbed by the barbarian mark on the left side of his face. The barbarian marks on the left side of Ning Fan's face gradually covered the right side of his face. The number of barbarian marks kept increasing from 46, 47, 48, 49. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 73. 92 marks, 93 marks, 94 marks. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, 2 million savage beasts had fallen. The number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 95 marks. When the number of barbarian marks reached 95, the black and red barbarian mark on the right side of Ning Fan's face formed a totem of 9 leaves. At the same time, the image of a 6-edged snowflake suddenly appeared at the center of the 9 leaves. At the same time, traces of barbarian blood were produced in Ning Fan's body. As soon as the barbarian blood was produced, it was immediately devoured by the domineering Calamity Blood. The grade of Ning Fan's Calamity Blood had already broken through the 7 stars remnant blood. Now, under the continuous strengthening, it rose all the way to the 8 stars remnant blood. The grade of the Calamity Blood is about to break through to the 8 stars remnant blood. Although the grade of his bloodline had clearly increased, Ning Fan's face did not show much joy. Instead, it was still as solemn as before. With the help of the barbarian summoning technique, Ning Fan knew that the enemies who came to attack the Southly Fire Formation were not only 8 million savage beasts but also 3 barbarian ancestors. If his senses were not wrong, the 3 barbarian ancestors were currently hiding behind a large group of savage beasts. However, they did not seem to be in a hurry to attack. Strange. It's not an easy task to break the Southly Fire Formation with just the strength of 8 million savage beasts. Even if they are lucky enough to break the formation, they will also suffer heavy losses. Why are these 3 barbarian ancestors hiding at the side and not helping the savage beasts to break the formation? Could it be that they don't care about the casualties of the savage beasts? The first barbarian ancestor's face was cold from the beginning to the end. He watched everything that was happening in front of him with cold eyes. The second and fourth ancestors, on the other hand, wore cold smiles on their faces. If they were not wrong, there were already 96 barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body. 96 barbarian marks. Hee. Good. Very good. I wonder if this young man can break through the barrier of 100 barbarian marks. 100 barbarian marks is a bottleneck, but it is also an opportunity for his barbarian marks to undergo a qualitative change. Only when he breaks through the barrier of 100 barbarian marks can he be considered a delicacy. 9 barbarian first trials. I wonder if this young man can survive this trial. The second and fourth ancestors' faces were filled with anticipation. The savage beasts continued to fall while the number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body continued to increase. After the barbarian marks covered the right side of his face, they began to spread to his entire body. 97, 98, 99. When the number of barbarian marks on his body broke through the barrier of 100, Ning Fan's expression suddenly changed. At this moment, the barbarian marks in his body suddenly began to devour its master. An unimaginable suction force was emitted from the barbarian marks. This time, the barbarian marks did not absorb spirit sense but vitality. The vitality in Ning Fan's body began to flow into the barbarian marks at a crazy rate. Although a cultivator's lifespan would be limitless after attaining the second step, if the vitality in his body dissipated, he would still grow old bit by bit and die. At this moment, Ning Fan was in such a state. His vitality was being devoured by the barbarian marks at a crazy rate. His entire body began to show signs of aging due to the loss of vitality. His palms began to wither and his appearance began to age. If it was not for the fact that he was currently covering his ghost face, others would definitely notice it. In just 10 breaths of time, Ning Fan's appearance changed from a young man to a haggard old man. How dare a mere barbarian mark devour its master? Ning Fan's eyes immediately turned cold. He activated the Calamity Blood aura force in his body, trying to suppress the barbarian mark's backlash once again. Unfortunately, the Calamity Blood aura force could not suppress the barbarian mark's backlash this time. The backlash this time was too special. It was completely different from the previous backlash. The backlash this time had a name. During the time when the barbaric ancestor was still alive, it was called the 9 Barbarian Tribulation by the barbarian cultivators. One of the reasons why the high-grade barbarian summoning technique was dangerous was that it would trigger 9 tribulations when the young barbarian priest was awakened. Every time a person's barbarian mark broke through 100 checkpoints, they would face a tribulations and their vitality would be devoured by the barbarian mark. This kind of devouring could not be stopped. Only by continuously replenishing their vitality could they survive the tribulations and continue to increase the number of barbarian marks. The reason why Ning Fan's vitality was being devoured was because he was facing the first tribulations of the young barbarian priest. Even though he had activated the Calamity Blood Aura Force, he still could not suppress the Barbarian Mark's backlash. Ning Fan's eyes became even more solemn. He could not stop the Barbarian Mark from devouring his vitality. He must find a way to replenish his vitality. If the vitality in his body was exhausted, his body would grow old and die step by step. I have a way to replenish vitality. Let's see how much vitality your Barbarian Mark can devour. Ning Fan suddenly recalled the scene where the old man named Ni Fan devoured Xinjia's vitality to recover his strength. His expression changed. His body suddenly emitted a towering demonic chi. His white robes and silver hair turned into black robes and black hair at this moment. The black-robed Ning Fan had appeared. The current Ning Fan was no longer using magic power to control his body. Instead, he was using his demonic power to control his body. Currently, he could use the Fuli clan's most powerful divine ability, Returning Ruin Finger. With this finger, he could devour the vitality of others and deprive their cultivation base. Countless cultivators were paying attention to the battlefield. They were paying attention to Lu He, Miao Yan and Ning Fan who were defending the formation. When Ning Fan turned into black robes and released his demonic chi, many old monsters naturally saw this scene and exclaimed in surprise. Hiss! Senior Zhao Jian's chi has changed. It has actually turned into the chi of a demonic cultivator. What a strong and evil demonic chi! What kind of demonic chi is this? What kind of demonic chi is this? I didn't expect Senior Zhao Jian to be able to use the power of the demonic race as a human. Could it be that Senior Zhao has consumed the ancient returning fruit before? Could it be that a demon vein has been nurtured in his body? Even though these cultivators exclaimed in surprise, none of them doubted Ning Fan's identity as a human. They only knew that Ning Fan had consumed the ancient returning fruit, which was why he possessed the power of the demonic race. Lu He and Miao Yan were controlling the vermilion bird to kill the savage beasts. When they saw Ning Fan turn into black robes, they only gave him a glance but did not say anything. Among the crowd, only those cultivators who were riding on the Devil Essence boat revealed a surprised expression the moment Ning Fan turned into black robes. Mounzi and Old Ancestor Jin Hua's expressions changed, especially Old Ancestor Jin Hua who had been severely injured by Ning Fan's finger. He knew very well that Ning Fan would be extremely terrifying once he turns into black robes. Sha Gu. Ning Fan suddenly pointed a finger at the sky. That finger contained an indescribable mighty force. The name of this finger was Returning Ruin. This finger had the power to make people return to the Returning Ruin. It could also take away the vitality of others and devour their Dao attainments to restore themselves. In the void outside the fire formation, billowing black mist immediately appeared under the finger. The black mist spread across the entire battlefield. Any savage beasts that fell into the mist began to lose their vitality at a crazy rate. Their vitality was taken away by Ning Fan's Returning Ruin finger. Moreover, these savage beasts would lose 1,000 years of Dao attainments for every breath they took. After 10 breaths, a large number of savage beasts lost 10,000 years of Dao attainments and their cultivation bases were greatly damaged. 10 breaths was the limit of Ning Fan's Returning Ruin finger. However, 10 breaths was enough for him to obtain enough vitality for his barbaric mark to devour. After Ning Fan displayed this finger ability, 6 Unity Immortal Venerated was immediately shocked. Originally, he did not pay too much attention to the black-robed Ning Fan. However, at this moment, he was shocked by the black-robed Ning Fan's Returning Ruin finger. It was his first time seeing such a domineering ability that could actually wipe away the Dao attainments of others. The profoundness of this ability had already exceeded his understanding. Miao Yan's beautiful eyes were filled with brilliance. She could not see through the profoundness of Ning Fan's ability. In her mind, Ning Fan's image became even greater and more mysterious. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor who had been hiding at the side all this while gasped. They sensed a trace of danger from the Returning Ruin finger. It was enough to threaten the blood soul inside the stone statue. Even the first barbarian ancestor let out a soft cry of surprise. His expression turned solemn and he muttered to himself. This young man doesn't seem to be as simple as we thought. With the vitality that was devoured by the returning ruined finger, the vitality in Ning Fan's body was replenished. His old and withered appearance regained its youthfulness. The barbaric marks on his body were still devouring the vitality in Ning Fan's body crazily, but they could no longer threaten his life. Gradually, the barbaric marks calmed down as if they had devoured enough vitality. This meant that Ning Fan had safely passed the first damage tribulation of the young barbarian god. After passing the damage tribulation, a large amount of barbaric blood appeared in Ning Fan's body again. After devouring the barbaric blood, the Jia blood's grade completely broke through to the 8-star remnant blood. 8-star remnant blood. Ning Fan's eyes sparkled. The number of barbaric marks on his body increased again. 101, 102, 103, 104, the number of savage beasts that had died here had already exceeded 5 million. The number of barbaric marks on Ning Fan's body had also reached 156. When the number of barbaric marks reached 156, Ning Fan's body produced more barbaric blood. After devouring the barbaric blood, the grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood slowly approached the 9 stars tribulation blood. However, it had yet to break through to the 9 stars tribulation blood. There were only 3 million savage beasts left, but the 3 barbarian ancestors had yet to show themselves. Ning Fan's heart sank and he had a guess. Could it be that the 3 barbarian ancestors are waiting for all the savage beasts to die before they attack me? Could it be that they are purposely sending these savage beasts to their deaths? 157, 158, 159, 160, the number of savage beasts that had died here had already exceeded 7 million. The number of Ning Fan's barbaric marks had also increased to 199. The second and fourth ancestors' eyes were burning with excitement. They really wanted to know if Ning Fan could pass the second damage tribulation and obtain more than 200 barbaric marks. This young man knows the ability to extract vitality. Since he has passed the first damage tribulation, he should be able to pass the second damage tribulation. If he passes the second damage tribulation. Hee. That taste, Ning Fan was still wearing his black robes. He controlled his body with his demonic power. When the 200th barbaric mark appeared, he welcomed the second damage tribulation of the young barbarian priest. The barbaric marks in his body experienced a backlash once again. This time, the backlash was much stronger than the first time. Ning Fan suddenly stretched out his finger and displayed the returning ruined finger again. He used the vitality of the savage beasts outside the formation to replenish his own vitality. Just like that, Ning Fan passed the second damage tribulation without any danger. His body produced a large amount of barbaric blood again. Devour, devour, devour. The Jia blood devoured the barbaric blood crazily. Its grade slowly broke through the bottleneck of the 8 stars realm and reached the 9 stars remnant blood realm. If it advances to the 9 stars remnant blood realm, the next realm would be the 1-star true blood realm. The 9 stars remnant blood realm Taicang Jia Ling was already comparable to ordinary Shikong Jia, while the 1-star true blood realm Taicang Jia Ling was invincible against those below the Shikong Jia Ling. The difference in strength between the two of them was huge. Thus, it was extremely difficult to break through from the 9 stars remnant blood realm to the 1-star true blood realm. The number of savage beasts outside the formation gradually decreased. Gradually, there were only a few thought-shattering barbaric beasts that were still alive. The rest of them had already been killed by the 3 vermilion birds. The Southly Fire Formation had already been destroyed by the attacks of the 8 million savage beasts. The remaining thought-shattering barbaric beasts suddenly self-destructed at the same time. The power of their self-destruction directly shattered the Southly Fire Formation, which had exhausted its power. At this moment, all 8 million savage beasts were dead. At this moment, the number of barbaric marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 224. The 3 fiery mountains cracked one after another with a loud bang. The 3 vermilion birds' bodies dissipated and disappeared in the void space. The 3 formation flags also disappeared at the same time. They turned into a flame drawing which had lost a great deal of spirituality and fell into the hands of the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate. The Southleaf Fire formation was destroyed and the power of the Southleaf Fire drawing was greatly reduced. Seeing this scene, the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's face turned terrifyingly cold. However, he did not say anything. Even though the power of the Southleaf Fire drawing was greatly reduced, it was still a great achievement to kill 8 million savage beasts in one go. Without the help of these savage beasts, the balance between the human race and the demon race was no longer tilted in the demon race's favor. Continuously controlling the Grand Formation to kill the enemies consumed a lot of his energy. Before the 6 Unity Immortal Venerate had the time to rest, his eyes suddenly widened. At this moment, all the human cultivators and barbarians held their breaths. Their expressions were filled with nervousness. At this moment, the continent where the human cultivators were located had completely lost the protection of the Southleaf Fire formation. However, in the distant void space, several escaping lights with ferocious chi could be sensed. They came with ill intentions. They were the first ancestor, the second ancestor and the fourth ancestor. The 3 barbarian ancestors had come for Ning Fan. At the moment when the 3 barbarian ancestors appeared, Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. Hee. 224 barbarian marks. What a great supplement. If we devour this brat. The first ancestor's eyes were filled with killing intent while the second ancestor and the fourth ancestor were sneering. The killing intent of the 3 of them swept towards the human continent in an overwhelming manner. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerate's eyes became even more solemn. None of the 3 barbarian ancestors in front of him had a cultivation base that was not weaker than his. The aura of the first ancestor, especially, gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Wise Words Immortal Venerate secretly activated his star technique, getting ready to attack at any time. Immortal Loli's small face was already grim. She was ready to fight. A great battle was about to break out. However, the 3 barbarian ancestors seemed to have received a voice transmission all of a sudden. Their expressions changed drastically. That voice transmission was sent to them by the 7th ancestor. The moment the 3 of them received the voice transmission, they no longer had the intention to deal with Ning Fan. They chose a direction and directly left. They no longer had the time to deal with Ning Fan. There were more important things waiting for them to do. Damn it! Why did the first level of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court appear in advance? There's no time to catch that junior. Let's go to the first level of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court first. There's no hurry to devour the barbarian marks in that junior's body. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor grumbled inwardly. The human cultivators were secretly wondering why the 3 experts who were comparable to Immortal Venerates left after coming here. Seeing that the 3 barbarian ancestors had left, no one would naturally chase after them. Strange. Why did the 3 barbarian ancestors suddenly leave? While Ning Fan was pondering, the sky of this place suddenly rumbled. It was not just the sky of this place, but the sky of all the gates of life and gates of death in the entire wild desolate was rumbling. The shadow of a majestic palace gate slowly appeared in the sky. There was a horizontal board on top of the palace gate. There were only 3 ancient words written in the ancient immortal language on it. These words were a type of language that had been passed down from ancient times. Very few cultivators could recognize them. There were only a dozen or so people who could recognize these words. Ning Fan, however, could also recognize these words. He muttered the 3 ancient immortal language on the horizontal board of the palace gate. First heavenly layer. He did not know what these 3 words meant. There were also very few people who knew what these 3 words meant. Only Lu He and Wise Words Immortal, who came from the East sect and had been guarding the wild desolate for many years, knew the true meaning of the first heavenly layer. The first heavenly layer referred to the first level of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. As for the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, it was another name for the ancient passage of the wild desolate. The power of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict has yet to run out, but the ancient passage has appeared in advance. How could this be? Both Lu He and Wise Words were shocked. Among the hundreds of immortal emperors of the human race and demon race in the passage, many of their expressions changed drastically. Today is only the 5th day since the collapse of the wild desolate. It hasn't even reached the 7th day. Why did the ancient passage appear in advance? Chapter 9:13. Many of the great emperors on the passageway sensed the changes in the desolate land. No one knew exactly what had gone wrong, causing the ancient era's passage to appear ahead of time. The true dragon tribe leader's expression was unsettled. He looked towards the ancient emperor of Tongtian, only to meet the ancient emperor of Tongtian's gaze. The moment their gazes met, they saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Isn't this the doing of the human race? Could it be an accident that the ancient passage appeared in advance? True Dragon Clan leader and Tong Tian ancient emperor pondered. After a moment of silence, the True Dragon Clan leader took out a golden bowl and held it up. The moment the golden bowl rose into the air, it expanded with the wind and let out a chilling dragon roar. Then, it fell from the sky and sucked all the monster race grand emperors into the bowl world. The human race immortal emperors were separated by the golden bowl, so they couldn't see what the demon race immortal emperors were doing. After doing all this, the True Dragon Clan leader ordered the monarchs behind him. Where is the demon wolf? I'm here. A female empress in palace attire with a veil over her face slowly walked out from the group of demon emperors. Take off your veil and cast the demon art of disguise. Use your skin to project a corner of the 9 heavens imperial court. There must be no mistakes. Yes. The empress of the demon race, Lei Yao, was only at the eternal 6th tribulation, and she didn't have a true spirit clan background. He did not dare to disobey the orders of the head of the True Dragon Clan. Right now, the desolate was sealed by the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. If the power of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict was not depleted, no one would be able to enter the desolate. Fortunately, the demon race had Empress Ho Yao, who possessed incredible abilities. Even with the Heaven Bestowal Immortal's Edict in place, she was able to scout out the situation in the wildlands. This woman obeyed the orders of the True Dragon Clan leader and took off her veil, revealing a peerlessly beautiful face. If a man with insufficient willpower saw this face, he would fall into a trance. But then, she tore off the beautiful skin, revealing the bloody and ugly true face underneath. Demon Yen tossed up the skin that he had torn off, and the skin immediately spread out like a canvas. She formed a seal with her white hand and wrote something on the surface of the painting. Not long after, there seemed to be light and shadow flowing on the surface of the painting, faintly reflecting something, but it couldn't be seen too clearly. The projection isn't clear. Is it because of the interference from the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict? In the end, it's because this girl's cultivation base is slightly lower. After pondering for a moment, the True Dragon Clan leader took out a bottle of dragon tooth pills and handed it to the demon, saying, "Consume this pill. Within 3 days, you will be able to stimulate your potential and raise your demon power cultivation by 1 small realm." Demon Chi took the pill and swallowed it in one go. After consuming the pill, her bloodied appearance became even uglier, but her aura increased in a short period of time. She was no weaker than an immortal emperor with 7 tribulations. This pill was extremely precious and there were only a few of them in the entire True Dragon Clan. Yet, it was given to the demon. Demon Chi activated her divine ability again. This time, the projection on the face was slightly clearer. One could vaguely see the void of the desolate land from the projection, as well as a towering palace in the void. That palace wasn't an illusion, but a real existence. Every brick and tile was an ancient object, as if it had directly descended from the endless void to the desolate land. The aura of the palace was heavy and vicissitude, causing any demon sovereign who saw it to have the urge to kneel down and worship it. That palace was the ancient passageway of the desolate ancient region, 9 heavens imperial court. Vaguely, the demon sovereigns of the demon race saw the scene of 4 two-headed cultivators stepping into the palace. Because the projection was too blurry, they couldn't see the appearance of the 4 two-headed cultivators clearly. However, just the sight of the two-headed cultivators had already caused many demon sovereigns to frown. Two-headed Could these 4 people be the barbarian ancestors in the history of the desolate land? The demon race had been plotting against the desolate land for a long time and had interacted with the barbarian ancestors before. Therefore, they could vaguely recognize the 4 of them as the barbarian ancestors. As for which barbarian ancestors they were, they couldn't tell. After all, the projection was too blurry and they couldn't see them clearly. The true dragon clan leader looked at the projection on the painted skin, frowned and gradually fell silent. While the true dragon clan leader was trying to project the projection into the desolate land, the ancient heaven-reaching sovereign wasn't idle either. He took out an ancient painting and opened it, bringing all the demon sovereigns into the painting world. After pondering for a moment, he said to the tablet-wielding immortal emperor, Meng Xuanzi. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, your Tao sovereign is a tablet that can list everything in the world and rank them. I want you to create a tablet. What tablet? Meng Xuanzi walked out of the formation and asked. A tablet that can peer into the 9 heavens imperial court. This is a little difficult. Even if I can create a tablet with the heaven bestowment immortal edict in between, I'm afraid it won't be of much use. Forget it, I'll try my best. Meng Xuanzi patted the top of his head and a golden primordial spirit immediately flew out from the top of his head. The primordial spirit chanted and suddenly pointed forward. There was no one in front of it. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard and a giant bluestone tablet descended from the sky. There were originally no words on the giant tablet, but as Meng Xuanzi's divine ability changed, rows of names gradually appeared. First-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Sanggu, has entered the first level of the 9 heavens imperial court, 11th palace. Second-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Zong, has entered the first level of the 9 heavens imperial court, 9th palace. Fourth-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Shoufei, has entered the first level of the 9 heavens imperial court, 7th palace. 7th-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Makong, has entered. Specific location cannot be displayed, there were only 4 names on the bluestone tablet. This meant that at this moment, there were only 4 people who had entered the 9 heavens imperial court. The locations of 3 of the 4 barbarian ancestors who had entered the 9 heavens imperial court could be seen clearly, but the location of the 7th ancestor could not be displayed. Why can't the 7th barbarian ancestor's location be displayed? The ancient Arch of Heaven frowned slightly and asked. There's a limit to what I can sense when the heaven bestowment immortal edict is cast. Once the target is wearing a concealment item, I won't be able to see too much. The 7th barbarian ancestor must have a concealment treasure on him. Moreover, this concealment treasure doesn't conceal his appearance or identity, but only his whereabouts. Meng Xuanzi answered. I see. The ancient Arch of Heaven stood in front of the giant tablet with his hands behind his back. He did not speak anymore, and no one knew what he was thinking about, in the base of the demon race in the wilderness. Ao Xian and old ancestor Poisonous Dragon walked out of the palace together. They looked at the illusionary palace in the sky with surprise and joy on their faces. According to the original plan of the demon race, the 2 of them had to find one of the ancient statues of the barbarian ancestor. After the power of the heaven bestowment immortal edict dissipated, they had to make the ancient statue revolve 3 times before they could awaken the ancient passage. Now, it was not the last day of the collapse of the wilderness yet, and they had not found any of the ancient statues. However, the ancient passage had appeared. I've been unable to find the ancient statue of the barbarian ancestor for a long time, and I thought that I wouldn't be able to awaken the ancient passage. I didn't expect it to appear on its own. Although this matter is a little strange, it is a good thing. If that's the case, there's a high chance that we'll be able to complete the mission that the clan leader gave us. Ao Xian and Patriarch Poisonous Dragon looked excited. They directly abandoned the monster race and monster cultivators in the base and sped off in a direction. What appeared in the sky was merely a mirage of the 9 heavens imperial court, and not the real 9 heavens imperial court. The 9 heavens imperial court was not here, but somewhere else. At this moment, the 2 of them were in a hurry to rush to the true location of the 9 heavens imperial court, just to enter it and complete the mission given by the clan leader. Compared to this matter, everything else seemed insignificant. In addition to Ao Xian and Patriarch Poisonous Dragon, there were 13 other monsters. 20 thought-fragmenting cultivators and 45 shedding space cultivators followed the two of them and left the demon clan's encampment, rushing towards the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The ruins of the South Parting Fire Formation, the human encampment. The six combination Immortal Venerate and the wonderful words Immortal Venerate looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The ancient era's passage had actually appeared. This matter had truly exceeded their expectations. Humph. No wonder the three immortal venerables who came to attack us left directly without fighting us. They must have gone to search for the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Since the Nine Heavens Imperial Court has appeared in advance, I must go and find out immediately. The cultivators of my puppet sect have been plotting for this ancient era's passage for many years. It's best if I can seize the authority to control this passage. Even if I can't let the monster race gain the upper hand. As soon as he finished speaking, the six Unity Immortal Venerables sent a few telepathic messages to some of the human cultivators. Then, he brought 11 thought-fragmenting cultivators and 37 shedding space cultivators with him and left in a certain direction. Venerables Miao Yen did not leave with the six Unity Immortal Venerables. Instead, he stayed behind for the time being and said to Ning Fan with a solemn expression. Fellow Daoist Zhao, do you want to go to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court with me? The Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Does it refer to the illusory shadow of this palace? What kind of place is the Nine Heavens Imperial Court? Ning Fan looked at the illusory shadow of the palace in the sky and his eyes became increasingly solemn. Venerables Miao Yen did not give any explanation. Instead, he took out a jade slip and passed it to Ning Fan. Then, he said slowly, the information regarding the Nine Heavens Imperial Court is one of the greatest secrets of my Four Unity sect. It can't be divulged to outsiders. However, the current situation is rather special. Fellow Daoist Zhao, please take a look at this information. Ning Fan received the jade slip and probed it with his spirit sense. After 10 breaths or so, he returned the jade slip to Venerables Miao Yen. His expression did not change much, but his heart was filled with astonishment. Only now did he know that the hidden ancient era's passage in the ancient savage domain was called the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. It was exactly what the illusory shadow in the sky was referring to. The demon race and the human race had been fighting in the ancient savage domain for many years. What they were after was the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The Nine Heavens Imperial Court had a total of 9 floors. Each floor had 111 palaces. Only by passing through the 111 palaces on the first floor could one enter the second floor. As long as one passes through all the palaces, one would be able to reach the highest point of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. There was a sealed stone door there. It was the entrance to the ancient savage domain. One would need a corresponding key to open the door in order to enter. It was said that the key to the entrance of the savage ancient region was kept by ancestor dragon Zhu Li. Now, the key was still in the hands of the True Dragon Clan. The True Dragon Clan had the key to the entrance of this place. Therefore, they had always hoped to gain control of the entrance. Once they achieved their goal, the True Dragon Clan would be able to open the stone door with the key and enter the legendary ancient realm of Heaven Desolation. 1 billion years ago, the 4 heavens and 9 realms, the demon spirit land, and the ancient demon's abyss belonged to the same realm, the illusion realm. At that time, the illusionary world was a complete realm. At that time, the cultivators of the illusionary world were under the jurisdiction of the Zi-Do immortal domain. At that time, the cultivators of the illusionary world could directly go to the Zi-Do immortal domain without any obstacles. However, Immortal Lord Zi-Do suddenly used a divine ability to block a mysterious realm between the illusionary world and the Zi-Do immortal realm. It was called the Heavenly Desolate Ancient Realm. The existence of the Desolate Heaven Ancient Realm had completely cut off the path between the illusory world and the Zi-Do immortal domain. There were only 9 ancient passageways and 9 ancient realm keys left in the illusory world. Only by opening the corresponding entrance with the corresponding key could one enter the ancient desolate heaven realm. Only by walking out of the ancient desolate heaven realm would one be able to reach the Zi-Do immortal domain. The 9 ancient realm keys were once held by ancient Chaos, Zhu Li, and 9 other experts. As time passed, many of the keys had gone missing. Currently, there were only 3 keys that had been found by people in the world. The 9 ancient passageways were hidden between heaven and earth. There were only 6 ancient passageways that had been found. Among the 6 passageways, 4 of them had been destroyed. Only 2 of them could still be used. The 2 passageways of the 3 keys did not correspond to each other. Therefore, it was impossible to open the entrance to the ancient desolate heaven realm. The reason why the true dragon clan wanted to obtain the entrance to the desolate heaven realm was because they knew that the entrance corresponded to the key that they possessed. Therefore, once they obtained the entrance, the cultivators of the true dragon clan would have a high chance of opening the entrance to enter the ancient desolate heaven realm and head to the Zi-Do immortal domain. In order to achieve this goal, the true dragon clan was willing to pay any price. Similarly, the human clan also wanted to obtain the entrance. However, they hoped that after obtaining the entrance, they would have an equal bargaining chip with the demon clan. You have the key and I have the entrance. In this way, we can sit down and talk about entering the ancient desolate heaven realm together. In order to achieve this goal, the human clan had been planning for the entrance to the desolate heaven realm for many years. The representative force of the human clan was the 4 Miao sect. This chapter is slightly short. I'm too tired. Please forgive me. Chapter 9:14. The 4 Majestic sect had been plotting against the desolate ancient passage for a long time. The true dragon tribe wanted to perform a blood sacrifice in the wildlands to awaken the ancient passageway. This matter would more or less leak out, and the 4 Meridian sect was not completely unaware of it. The immortal emperors of the 4C sect had tacitly agreed to the true dragon clan's plan because they also wanted to awaken the ancient passageway. The heavenly bestowal edict left behind by the 4 Fish sect in the wildlands was proof of this. It would not stop the demonic beast's plan. It would only delay the demonic beast's plan by 7 days, so that the 4 Meridian sect would have enough time to react and fight for the ancient passageway. Whether it was the demon race or the human race, in their eyes, the lives of barbarians were just like grass. If they could awaken the ancient passage, what harm was there in sacrificing the blood of the barbarians? Now that the 9 Heavens Imperial Court had finally appeared, as an immortal reverend of the 4 Demons sect, Reverend Wise Words had the obligation to investigate like a 6 combos immortal reverend. If possible, she would try to seize control of the entrance of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. At the very least, she had to stop the demon race from seizing the entrance before the power of the heaven-sealing immortal imperial decree was exhausted. This was her responsibility as an immortal venerable of the 4 Minds sect. I want to go to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court to investigate. Fellow Taoist Zhao, do you want to go with me? Putting aside the identity of the ancient passage, there should be many opportunities in the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. Fellow Taoist, don't you want to go and take a look? Venerable Wise Words asked expectantly. I won't go to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court to join in the fun. Ning Fan pondered for a moment and shook his head, rejecting venerated Miao Yan's suggestion. Does fellow Zhao want to stay here and protect the barbarians here? Venerable Wisdom Words revealed a thoughtful expression as she looked in the direction of Heaven Barbarian City. Yes. Ning Fan answered. If he headed for the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, he would have to abandon Fairy Lowly, Zhao Dai, and the others. Now that the wildlands was filled with unfathomable dangers, who knew what sort of dangers would appear if he left? No one could guarantee that. Venerable Wise Words went to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court to investigate in order to fulfill his responsibility as an venerable immortal of the Gong sect. However, he did not have any responsibility to go to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. He wanted to stay here and protect immortal Lowly, Zhao Dai, and the others. Moreover, up until today, he had already figured out many things. Judging from how the demon race and the human race schemed against the ancient passage, the series of unforeseen events that had occurred in the wilderness was probably beyond the demon race and the human race's expectations, but it was also within their control. The appearance of the ancient passage would definitely attract countless experts from the two clans to fight over it. Getting involved in matters related to the ancient passage might cause trouble. The collapse of the wildlands would only last for 7 days. After 7 days, the power of the heavens sealing immortal edict would be exhausted. At that time, there would probably be a large number of experts from the demon race and human race who would enter the desolate land to fight for the ancient passage. Ning Fan was not a meddlesome person. He did not have the obligation to go to the ancient passage, nor did he crave for the opportunities within it. Compared to those fortuitous opportunities, he was more willing to stay here and protect Xian Loli, Zhao Dai, and the others. Since fellow Daoist Zhao is unwilling to head to the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, I won't force you. It's good to have fellow Daoist here. Seeing that Ning Fan was unwilling to go with them, venerated Miao Yen felt a little regretful. However, he did not say anything and just stared at Ning Fan deeply. She felt like she only knew Ning Fan at this moment. He was a strange cultivator who cared about the lives and deaths of barbarians. Somehow, venerated Miao Yen did not feel repulsed by Ning Fan's behavior. With light steps, she finally turned into a ray of light and flew away from this place. Looking at venerated Miao Yan's departing figure, Ning Fan shook his head and returned to the heavenly barbarian city, which was not far away from the third peak. Before the 6 venerated immortals left, they brought Ting Nan, Ting Bei, Sang Chong, and a large number of experts of the 4 meridians sect with them. Now that venerated Miao Yen had left, there were not many remnant thoughts and void residences left on the human continent. Many cultivators were filled with fear. They were afraid that there would be no one left to guard this place after Ning Fan left. Fortunately, Ning Fan did not leave but chose to stay. Isn't this senior Zhao planning to leave with the 2 venerated immortals Lu He and Miao Yen? Speaking of which, what is this illusory palace? I have no idea. However, I have a feeling that there might be a great opportunity inside. Mounz, old ancestor Jin Hua and the rest of the remnant thoughts did not belong to the 4 meridian sect. Thus, they were not taken away by venerated 6 meridians. These few old monsters of the remnant thoughts communicated with each other through telepathy, discussing something in secret. After a while, they also flew away from the human continent, following the route that Lu He and the others took to search for the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. They wanted to join in the fun and search for a great opportunity. Ning Fan did not stop Mounz and the others from leaving. Their legs belonged to them. It was their business to go wherever they wanted to go. After Mounz and the others left, a few more void residences also left. After that, no one else left. Uncle, so many people have left. Aren't you going to go with them and have a look? In the heavenly barbarian city, Zhao Dai, asked with a clear and melodious voice. I'm not going anywhere, Ning Fan smiled faintly. Just like what he did many years ago, he gently patted her head. There were no plum blossoms in this place. However, when he bent his palm and waved it, a red plum blossom appeared out of thin air and pinned it on Zhao Dai's temple. Zhao Dai's cheeks blushed slightly. Her fair skin was covered with a faint pink. Suddenly, her heart was filled with feelings. However, Ning Fan's emotionless voice resounded in her ears. For a moment, she did not dare to have any feelings towards Ning Fan as she was afraid that it would tarnish the beauty of this moment. Don't be afraid. Uncle will stay here and protect Dai. In another 2 days, the calamity of the desolate world will probably be over. At that time, no matter how hard the human race and the demon race fight against each other, it will have nothing to do with you, me, and the barbarians. 2 days. In another 2 days, the calamity of the desolate world would probably be over, be it the immortal Loli, Zhao Dai, or the barbarians whom he had saved and had a predestined relationship with. During this period of time, he would protect these people properly. Unknowingly, when he had this belief, he suddenly had a strange feeling. At this moment, Ning Fan clearly felt that the relationship between him and the 224 barbarian marks had become even more intimate. Yes, this is the feeling. In the past, the barbarian marks would occasionally bite back at its master. However, at this moment, the barbarian Mark seemed to have been tamed and no longer had the intention to bite back. All of this seemed to be because Ning Fan had the thought of protecting the barbarians. This barbarian Mark, Ning Fan examined his body and muttered to himself for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. After an unknown period of time, Ning Fan's figure flashed and appeared on the peak of the third peak. He unsealed the yin and yang of rain and displayed the heaven-peering rain technique. The Southly Fire formation was broken and the Southly Fire diagram was beaten back to its original form. Currently, the three fire peaks no longer had any power and were filled with lifeless qi. Ning Fan stood on the peak of the dead silent third peak. As soon as he displayed his technique, a light drizzle that was as smooth as cheese immediately fell from the third peak. The rain drifted along the way and gradually dispersed. It sprinkled on the second peak, the first peak and every corner of the Gate of Life. Then, it spread all the way to the other worlds. His rain spread further and further. Eventually, it covered the entire desolate world. He saw some humans and demons flying at high speed from time to time. However, not a single wild beast could be seen in the desolate world now. He saw a base camp of the demon race at a certain Gate of Life in the distance. There were more than 3 million demon cultivators there, but old ancestor Poisonous Dragon and venerated immortal Ao Xian were not there. He saw a majestic palace gate floating in the void somewhere extremely far away. It was different from the shadow of the palace gate in the sky above his head. The palace gate there was real, while the shadow here was just a projection caused by the appearance of the palace gate. That palace gate was the entrance to the first heaven of the 9 heavens imperial court. As time passed, Ning Fan saw old ancestor Poisonous Dragon and venerated immortal Ao Xian leading a large group of old monsters of the demon race into the 9 heavens imperial court. Gradually, Ning Fan saw 6 Unity Immortal venerated Miao Yan and the others entering the 9 heavens imperial court one after another. He just watched everything silently as if it had nothing to do with him. It was as if all the opportunities in the 9 heavens imperial court were not enough to tempt him. It was as if the ancient passage that caused the human race and demon race to go to war was just a meaningless swamp to him. The 5th day passed and the 6th day arrived. The 6th day passed and the 7th day arrived. It was already the last day of the blood sacrifice ceremony in the wild world. Ning Fan still stayed at this place without any intention of leaving. He was waiting for the 7th day to pass and for the power of the heaven-sealing immortal edict to be completely exhausted. He was waiting for the catastrophe that engulfed the wild world to pass the last day peacefully. However, on the last day of the blood sacrifice ceremony in the wild world, there was a sudden change in the sky above the third peak. An ancient voice resounded. This voice appeared out of nowhere. It resounded at midnight on the 7th day when the yin qi was the densest. Soul, come back. Soul, come back. This voice sounded like a call or a summon. It appeared out of nowhere. However, Ning Fan could immediately tell that the voice came from the direction of the 9 heavens imperial court. Moreover, there was a trace of barbaric ancestors' qi in this voice. It made Ning Fan immediately realize that the voice came from a certain barbaric ancestor. Ordinary people would not be able to hear this voice. Only those who possessed barbaric blood could hear it. It was the voice of a barbaric ancestor. It came from the bloodline of a barbaric ancestor. Even though the barbaric blood that Ning Fan cultivated was completely devoured by the calamity blood, he still retained part of the abilities of the barbaric blood. That was why he could hear this voice. The immortal Loli could not hear this voice. Lu Yen could not hear it. Even immortal concubine Zhang Yu, who was an ancient great emperor, could not hear it. However, Zhao Dai heard it. All the barbarians behind her heard it. The moment the voice fell, every barbarian who heard it felt as if their souls were being torn apart. They screamed and fell to the ground. The souls of these barbarians flew away from their bodies with blank eyes. Then, they turned into rays of illusory light and disappeared from where they stood. No one knew where they went. Ning Fan's soul had already fused with his primordial spirit. Even though he could feel the pain, it naturally would not break free from his primordial spirit and fly away from his body. However, those barbarians who were saved by Ning Fan and those who worshipped Ning Fan sincerely fell to the ground one after another. They had lost their souls. Even Zhao Dai's vision darkened. She almost fainted because her soul had left her body. Ning Fan hurriedly came to her rescue. He placed a finger on her glabella and sealed her soul from leaving her body. He had saved Zhao Dai. However, he did not manage to save the 1 million barbarians behind him in time. Soul, return. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. He had transformed into a mortal in the wild wilderness for many years. He had read many ancient books and he knew what these 4 simple words meant. These 4 words were the incantation of the soul summoning technique, the 7th barbarian ancestor, Fan Ma Kong. The one who used the soul summoning technique to absorb the souls of the 1 million barbarians was most likely the 7th barbarian ancestor, Fan Ma Kong. It was already the last day of the blood sacrifice in the wild wilderness. As long as they could survive today, the 1 million barbarians would be able to survive. All the barbarians in the wild wilderness had died. Only these 1 million barbarians remained. They were the last bloodline of the barbarians. However, those barbarian ancestors still refused to let these barbarians go. They still used the evil barbarian technique to absorb the souls of these barbarians. Uncle. What happened this time? Why did everyone faint on the ground? Why? Zhao Dai's face turned pale. She struggled out of Ning Fan's embrace and looked at the barbarians who had fallen to the ground on the long street of the heavenly barbarian city. There was no qi. All the barbarians had lost their qi. Are they dead? Are the last barbarians of the barbarian race all dead? The bad premonition in her heart grew stronger and stronger. 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corner of her eyes. She did not understand. She could not understand. Why did the heavens treat the barbarians like this? Why must the barbarians be exterminated? What did the barbarians do wrong? Who was it? Who attacked the barbarians again? Don't cry. These barbarians just fainted temporarily. They will wake up again. Uncle, I promise. Come, wipe your tears. Ning Fan did not tell Zhao Dai the truth about the 7th ancestor using the soul summoning technique. He just gently patted her hair as usual and said to the immortal lowly beside him. Xian, you stay here and protect them. Daddy is going out to handle some matters. He will be back soon. Oh. I know. Be careful when Daddy goes out. The immortal lowly answered obediently. Ning Fan gently turned around and stomped on the ground with the tip of his foot. He turned into a ray of golden light and flew towards the 9 heavens imperial court. His expression was originally gentle, but the moment he turned around, no one noticed that his eyes were filled with killing intent that was as cold as a storm. Barbarian ancestor, barbarian ancestor. It's the barbarian ancestor again. The soul summoning technique was one of the abilities that the 7th ancestor was most proficient in. It could draw the barbarian's soul from thousands of miles away and use it as a sacrifice to cast a technique. If the soul could be retrieved before it was destroyed and put back into the body, the barbarian whose soul was extracted would not die. If it was too late and the soul was destroyed, the millions of barbarians here would die. Ning Fan was never a kind person, but it did not mean that he had no principles. On the contrary, he was a person who valued his principles very much. There was no reason for the people that he saved to be killed a second time. He must save the souls of these barbarians. Currently, almost all the experts in the entire barbarian desolate have gone to the 9 heavens imperial court. Xian is guarding outside. Nothing will happen. I didn't plan to go to the 9 heavens imperial court at first, but the 7th ancestor is in the 9 heavens imperial court. He extracted the souls of these barbarians there. If that's the case, I have to go to the 9 heavens imperial court no matter what. The 7th ancestor, right? Ning Fan's eyes flickered with cold light. He turned into a ray of golden light and passed through the worlds of the gates of life at a terrifying speed. His silver hair danced wildly in the void. Along the way, Ning Fan kept devouring large amounts of spiritual items of the five elements. With the power of the great five elements physique, he directly refined them and turned them into an endless source of magical power. With his current speed, he arrived at the Nine Heavens Imperial Court in less than 100 breaths. What came into his sight was a towering palace gate that could reach the heavens. Outside the gate, there was a long white jade staircase that was 3,300 steps high. On the palace gate, there were 3 ancient immortal characters written on it. The vermilion ink was as red as blood. The long white jade staircase was enshrouded with white mist. The mist was dense like the mist in the immortal realm. It carried an extremely strong power that forbade space. When this power was added to the body, it gave people a heavy feeling as if they were carrying a huge mountain. Any cultivator who came to this place would lose their ability to fly and land on the long staircase. They could only climb up on foot. When Ning Fan arrived, there were 3 early shedding void demon cultivators climbing up the long white jade staircase with great difficulty. The 3 shedding void demon cultivators were sweating profusely, as if it was extremely strenuous for them to climb the long white jade staircase. The reason why it was strenuous was because any cultivator who stepped into the long realm would feel a heavy pressure on their body. The pressure on the long white jade staircase was enough to make early crossing truth realm cultivators unable to move an inch. If they were suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm, even early shedding void demon cultivators would not be able to bear the pressure. Among the 3 of them, the one with a profound cultivation base had already climbed more than 1,000 steps. He was meditating on the spot to recover his demon power. It had already taken him a day to climb to this height. As for the other early shedding void demon cultivators, they had only climbed 700 to 800 steps after spending a day. It seems like early shedding void demon cultivators who are suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm won't be able to climb this white jade staircase and enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. No wonder Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon and Old Ancestor Ao Xian only brought mid-shedding void demon cultivators and above to this place. The 3 of us who are early shedding void demon cultivators have come here without permission. It seems like our trip is going to be in vain. We can't even climb the staircase outside the palace gate. Forget it. The 3 of us should take a rest here and return to our clan's encampment. There's no need to try to enter this place anymore. Even if there's a fortune in this place, it won't be our turn. The 3 demon cultivators were panting heavily. After communicating with each other via telepathy, all of them had the intention to leave. However, before they could leave, a ray of golden light had already pierced through the sky and Ning Fan's silver-haired ghost-faced figure appeared. As soon as Ning Fan arrived, his body was immediately suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm. He landed on the first step of the long white jade staircase without concealing his human chi. When the 3 demons saw Ning Fan's arrival, all of them were inwardly shocked. When they saw Ning Fan's ghost-faced silver-haired appearance, they were even more shocked. If they were not mistaken, the person in front of them should be the person who Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon had set a hefty bounty for. Should we attack this person? The bounty offered by Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon is extremely high. The weaker one among the 3 said. Don't. This person's chi is at the mid-true crossing realm. In other words, when this person isn't suppressed by the power of the forbidden immortal realm, his cultivation base is at the mid-shedding void demon realm. The 3 of us have consumed a lot of our demon chi. Even if we join forces, we might not be able to defeat this person. Instead, we might lose our lives in vain. No matter how high the bounty is, he's not someone we can kill. Let's think about how to protect ourselves if this person attacks us. The 3 demons' expressions were filled with vigilance. Each of them spread out their spirit sense and secretly locked onto Ning Fan. However, none of them dared to attack Ning Fan. All they did was take out their magic treasures and put on a defensive posture, afraid that Ning Fan would attack them. Just as their spirit sense that was locked onto Ning Fan circled around his body, it was immediately devoured by a domineering invisible suction force. When their spirit sense was devoured, the 3 of them felt a sharp pain in their sea of consciousness. Their expressions changed drastically. When they looked at Ning Fan again, they were even more fearful and dared not to harm him. As for Ning Fan, it was as if he did not see the three demon cultivators. He just walked up the long white jade staircase step by step. Ning Fan only glanced at the three demon cultivators indifferently. He did not pay too much attention to them, nor did he reveal any killing intent. He was not a person who would kill demons on sight. As long as the other party did not provoke him, he would not simply attack them. Moreover, he was in a hurry to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and take back the souls of the millions of barbarians. Thus, he did not have the time to waste with the three demons. The first step, the second step, the third step, Ning Fan continued to climb upwards at an extremely fast speed. His movement technique was like a phantom. In just a few breaths' time, he had already reached the 782nd step. The aura force that was enough to suppress an early truth-crossing realm expert actually could not slow down his pace. Among the three demons, the yellow-robed demon cultivator with the weakest cultivation base was at the 782nd step. When he saw Ning Fan climb to such a height in just a few breaths' time, his expression changed drastically. According to his speculation, even some late-shedding Void Realm experts would not be able to climb the White Jade Stairs as easily as Ning Fan due to the suppression of the forbidden immortal force. He was secretly shocked. Could it be that Ning Fan is a late-shedding Void Realm old monster? If he really is a late-shedding Void Realm expert, once he has the intention to kill me, I certainly do not have the strength to resist him, the yellow-robed demon cultivator said to Ning Fan with a nervous expression while retreating. Fellow Taoist, you can't attack me. What you're doing is against the harmony of the heavens. It's against the harmony of the heavens. Even though we are of different races, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. You can't. At first, he thought that Ning Fan would definitely attack him. However, Ning Fan did not even look at him. He directly walked past him and continued to climb upwards. This person is an old monster of the human race and his cultivation base is much higher than mine. He actually didn't kill me. How is this possible? The yellow-robed old demon was greatly surprised. With the hatred between the human race and the demon race in the wild wilderness, the other party did not seem to have any reason to let him go. Could it be that this person is in a hurry to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and does not have the time to fight with me? Yes, that must be the case. The more the yellow-robed old demon thought about it, the more he felt that his speculation was correct. Ning Fan continued to climb upwards. At the 826th step, he brushed past the second demon cultivator but he still did not attack him. At the 1106th step, he brushed past the third demon cultivator but he still did not attack him. Only when Ning Fan had climbed above the 2000th step and was already far away from them did the three demon cultivators let out a sigh of relief. After confirming that Ning Fan would not turn around and attack them, they immediately descended the stairs as if they were flying. Ning Fan did not care about their actions. He walked forward like a ghost. In just 10 breaths' time, he had climbed all 3,300 white jade steps and stood outside the palace gate. At this moment, the palace gate was already closed. It was a stone gate that was extremely tall. Under the cover of the white mist, it was impossible to see where the top of the gate was. Every person who attempted to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court had to spend the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. They had to bow 330 times towards the palace gate before they could enter. Under the suppression of the forbidden immortal power, only thought fragmentation realm old monsters could ignore this kind of etiquette and directly barge into the palace gate. Ning Fan did not have the mood to bow to a stone gate. He also did not plan to waste the time it takes for an incense stick to burn in this place. He was eager to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court and rescue the souls of those barbarians. Thus, he naturally did not want to waste too much time in this place. After giving the stone gate a glance, Ning Fan's body suddenly glowed with a faint red light. He activated the power of his calamity blood and pressed his finger forward. The grade of his calamity blood was already at the 9-star fragmentation realm. With just the power of the calamity sense in his body, he was able to fight against ordinary early and mid-shedding void realm cultivators. Under the suppression of the forbidden immortal power, Ning Fan was able to fight against early and mid-thought fragmentation realm old monsters with just his calamity sense. Just as the three shedding void realm demon cultivators ran down the white jade steps, they suddenly heard a loud bang coming from the palace gate at the top of the stairs. The three demons were greatly shocked. They quickly turned their heads and saw a 1,000 zhang large scarlet finger pressing on the giant gate. That scarlet finger was extremely evil. With just a glance, the three demons instinctively trembled and broke out in cold sweat. It was their first time seeing the power within the finger. It was neither demonic power nor illegal power. As soon as the finger fell, the palace gate of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court was immediately smashed into pieces. As for Ning Fan, he took a step inside. After he stepped inside, the broken stones on the ground flew up and reformed into the palace gate. He broke the palace gate with a single finger. Thought fragmentation realm old monster. That ghost-faced silver-haired cultivator is definitely a human thought fragmentation realm old monster. The expressions of the three demons changed drastically. They were filled with lingering fear. Fortunately, they did not attack Ning Fan. If they did, they would certainly die. The three of them were just early shedding void realm cultivators. Even if they joined forces, how could they be a match for a thought fragmentation realm old monster? At the moment when Ning Fan broke the palace gate with his finger and entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, Ning Fan's vague projection appeared on the demon's painted skin. Unfortunately, the projection was extremely blurry. No one could see Ning Fan's appearance clearly. It's already the 7th day. There are actually still people who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The clan leader of the True Dragon clan glanced at the projection and no longer paid attention to it. He ordered the demon to move the projection to the upper level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. The ones who could attract his attention were not Ning Fan, who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court late, but those who had already climbed to the upper level of the Imperial Court. When he saw that the few people who occupied the highest positions were all barbarians, the clan leader of the True Dragon clan snorted coldly. Humph! These barbarian ancestors are really fast. At this speed, they will reach the highest point of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court before the power of the Heaven-Sealing Immortal Edict is exhausted. I didn't expect that the fastest ones are actually these barbarians. At the moment when Ning Fan entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, a line of words suddenly appeared on the 135th position on Meng Xuanzi's gigantic green stone tablet. Name cannot be displayed. This person has entered the first level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court, the first palace. Meng Xuanzi was slightly surprised. Most of the human immortal emperors who were staring at the ancient tablet were also surprised. There were already 134 names on the giant tablet. This time, it was the 135th person who appeared. However, this 135th person had no name or surname. Why can't this person's name be displayed? The ancient reaching heaven emperor frowned slightly and asked Meng Xuanzi. Currently, there were already 135 people who had successfully entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. However, among them, only the 7th barbarian ancestor's position could not be displayed. Now, there was another person whose name could not be displayed. The cautious ancient reaching heaven emperor naturally wanted to know the reason. This person's name cannot be displayed. It must be because he is wearing a secret treasure that can conceal his identity and appearance. Meng Xuanzi answered. Is that so? The ancient reaching heaven emperor said indifferently. The 135th person who entered the Nine Heavens Imperial Court was naturally Ning Fan. Because Ning Fan was wearing an innate ghost mask, his name could not be displayed. The ancient reaching heaven emperor did not pay too much attention to this cultivator whose name could not be displayed. His eyes were more focused on the few people who were ranked at the top. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerables were ranked 7th. Their current position was the 57th palace on the 5th level of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Venerable Miao Yen was ranked 8th. His current position was the 22nd palace on the 5th level. The 6th place was Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon of the Demon Race. His current position was the 93rd palace on the 5th level. The 5th place was Ao Xian. He had already entered the 6th level. His current position was the 12th palace on the 6th level. The 4th place wasn't the demon race or the human race, but the 4 barbarian ancestors of the desolate land. Among the 4 barbarian ancestors, the 7th barbarian ancestor's position was the highest. He had already entered the 72nd palace on the 7th level. Could it be that the barbarian race will be the first to reach the top? The ancient reaching heaven emperor frowned slightly and muttered. However, a moment later, the ancient reaching heaven emperor exclaimed softly and shifted his gaze to the nameless cultivator who was ranked last. In just 10 breaths' time, the nameless cultivator's position had already broken through from the 1st palace on the 1st level to the 19th palace. Such a speed of breaking through palaces was rare. Only the 4 barbarian ancestors, Ao Xian, Poisonous Dragon, Lu He, Miao Yan and the other immortal venerables who had entered the early heavens imperial court could achieve such speed. Could this person also be a cultivator from the ancient times? Strange. According to this old man's deduction, there shouldn't be such a cultivator from the ancient times in the desolate land. I can't see his name. Who could he be? The ancient reaching heaven emperor muttered. Chapter 9:15. Ning Fan did not know that his action of entering the 9 heavens imperial court had already attracted the attention of some great emperors. After pressing a finger on the broken stone door, Ning Fan went inside. What came into his sight was a sea of clouds that looked like raging waves. Above the sea of clouds, the forbidden power of flight was extremely strong. Even immortal emperors could not fly in this place. The sea of clouds did not have a physical body. One could not step on it. Once one steps on it, he would definitely fall from the clouds and it would be hard to tell whether he would survive or die. Above the sea of clouds, there were 12 ancient roads paved with bluestones. They were like 12 green dragons, moving in different directions towards the peak of the sea of clouds. Ning Fan was currently standing on one of the 12 ancient bluestone roads. Only by standing on the ancient road would he not fall from the sea of clouds. There were a total of 12 ancient roads leading to the 2nd floor of the 9 heavens imperial court. On each of the ancient roads, there were 111 palaces. Only by choosing a road and passing through all the palaces on the road could one enter the 2nd floor of the 9 heavens imperial court. Ning Fan had already known about these things from the information given by venerated Miao Yan. The azure rain intent flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand and performed a hand seal, displaying the heaven-peering rain technique. His spirit sense turned into a drizzle, meandering upwards along the 12 ancient bluestone roads. His spirit sense scanned through each of the ancient bluestone roads, scanning through the 1st palace, the 2nd palace, the 111th palace on each ancient road. The 111th palace was located at the peak of the Sea of Clouds in the 1st floor of the 9 heavens imperial court. To go further up, one would need to tear open the sky of the 1st floor to enter the 2nd floor. Ning Fan's spirit sense turned into a drizzling rain technique, covering every corner of the 1st floor of the 9 heavens imperial court. He could sense that there were 31 other cultivators in the 1st floor of the 9 heavens imperial court other than himself. Among these cultivators, there were human cultivators and demon cultivators. Some of them were sitting cross-legged on the ancient bluestone roads, quietly adjusting their breathing. There were also some who were trying to pass through the palaces in some palaces. Among these 31 cultivators, most of them were at the mid-shedding void realm. Only 4 of them were at the late-shedding void realm. Among them, Ning Fan did not find the 7th ancestor. There's no sign of the 7th ancestor in the 1st floor. With his strength, he must have already rushed to a higher level of the 9 heavens imperial court. Ning Fan tried to make the rain of spirit sense break through the sky of the 1st level and enter the 2nd level. However, he realized that it was impossible. I can't sense the situation in the 2nd level of the heaven fault. I wonder which level has the 7th ancestor reached. After withdrawing the rain technique, Ning Fan randomly chose a route and walked along the ancient path. His movement technique was extremely fast like a ghost. In just a few breaths, he arrived outside a palace. This palace was surrounded by layers of red palace walls. The plaque above the palace door was painted with the words First Palace in ancient celestial seal script. There were only 2 doors in the palace. Ning Fan had to enter from the front door and walk out from the back to reach the second palace. Ning Fan merely took a glance at the horizontal board and stepped into the palace. As soon as he entered the palace, he immediately felt an overwhelming pressure pressing down from the sky. The suppressive force was extremely strong. Ordinary shedding void early-stage cultivators were suppressed by the power of the celestial restriction. If they entered the palace, they would immediately be thrown out of the palace by the suppressive force. They wouldn't even have the right to enter the palace. Even a mid-shedding void cultivator would find it hard to walk under the suppressive force of the palace. Without the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they definitely wouldn't be able to walk out of this palace. Although Ning Fan didn't have the cultivation base of the shedding void, his cultivation base wasn't suppressed by the power of the celestial restriction either. His strength was astonishing. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of the suppressive force of the first palace. The only thing that surprised him was that the suppressive force in this palace actually caused the tribulation blood in his body to boil slightly and then calm down. Ignoring the suppressive force of the palace, Ning Fan walked forward quickly. His eyes wandered around the walls of the palace with an inquiring look. There was nothing in the palace except for some murals on the 4 walls. Due to the passage of time, those murals were severely weathered. They were incomplete, making it impossible to see the specific content of the murals. In those murals, the shadows of the palace doors of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court appeared many times. In those murals, there was also an old man who wore a beast skin skirt and held a huge bone club in his hand. His upper body was bare and his muscles were strong. His hair was combed into countless braids and his body was covered with strange runes which looked like barbarian marks. Unknowingly, when Ning Fan saw the old man in the murals, the barbarian marks on his body had a hint of excitement. This strange feeling disappeared in a flash. Ning Fan halted his steps and looked inside his body. When he found that there were no changes to the barbarian marks in his body, he shook his head and continued to walk forward. That strange feeling never appeared again until he walked out of the first palace. Was it an illusion? Ning Fan pondered. After Ning Fan walked out of the first palace, an indistinct voice suddenly resounded in the murals. The voice was stiff and cold, as if it came from a corpse. There was no emotion in it. The chi of the tribulation blood. This kid is a true barbarian, the chi of the tribulation blood. This kid is a tribulation venerable of the upper world. This place is my temporary residence. 1 palace and 1 mark. This kid already has the first barbarian mark, there's no need for him to condense the first mark. Ning Fan left too quickly and did not hear the strange voice. His movement technique was extremely fast. As soon as he left the first palace, he immediately flashed past countless long stairs like a ghost and arrived at the second palace. Then, he entered it. In just the blink of an eye, Ning Fan had already left the second palace and entered the third palace. 10 breaths later, Ning Fan had already passed the 19th palace and entered the 20th palace. Another 10 breaths later, Ning Fan passed the 45th palace. Along the way, the 4 walls of each palace were painted with the same murals. In the beginning, Ning Fan would take a few glances at them, but in the end, he no longer looked at them and directly passed through the palace. The palace that he passed through would be filled with divine light for a moment. The divine light would only appear for a moment and then disappear. The ancient green stone path that Ning Fan chose was the 3rd one out of the 12 ancient paths. On this ancient path, outside the 46th palace, there was a burly man in black armor sitting cross-legged in meditation. He was a mid-shedding void realm demon cultivator who belonged to the Black Crane clan. The 46th palace was like a threshold. The difficulty of breaking through it was far greater than the 45th palace. The burly man in black armor had tried several times, but he still couldn't pass through the 46th palace. On the contrary, he failed several times and suffered some injuries. He couldn't help but feel disheartened. The aura force of the 46th palace is almost twice as strong as the aura force of the previous palace. What a pity. I have just broken through the mid-shedding void realm 100,000 years ago. I can't be considered as a mid-shedding void realm expert. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to pass through this palace. Fortunately, I didn't come here empty-handed. Previously, when I passed the 23rd palace, I found a tuft of jade wave demonic grass outside the palace. Its medicinal age has exceeded 2 million years. This demonic grass might not be a good thing to others, but I have a special cultivation method. This item is really good. The burly man in black armor was muttering to himself. Suddenly, his expression changed as he noticed that the 45th palace was bursting with divine light. Someone else has passed the 45th palace. Judging from this chi, it seems to be the chi of a human old monster. Before Ning Fan walked out of the 45th palace, a trace of the chi of a human cultivator had already spread out from the palace. The burly man's heart sank when he sensed the trace of human chi. He quickly rose to his feet and took out a magic treasure to protect himself. His expression was tense. He had failed to pass the palace several times and his body was already covered with injuries. If he were to fight with the intruder, the situation would be disadvantageous to him. Judging from the chi of this person, he should be the same as me, a mid-shell void cultivator. The human race and the demon race have been holding grudges against each other for a long time. If I encounter him here and he sees that I'm injured, there's no reason for him to forgive me. He will certainly attack me. This is troublesome. I wonder if I can survive today. The burly man in black armor was feeling nervous. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. He looked down at the sea of clouds and saw a ghost-faced, silver-haired, white-robed figure slowly walking out of the 45th palace. Ning Fan's pace didn't seem to be fast, but in a flash, he left an afterimage on the spot. In the next moment, he appeared behind the burly man in black armor like a ghost. The burly man felt a chill down his spine. He couldn't see how Ning Fan got to his back. There was only one explanation for his inability to see through Ning Fan's movement technique. Ning Fan's strength was far beyond his. Perhaps, Ning Fan's strength was already close to the late shell void cultivator. Ghost-faced and silver-haired. He's the person that old ancestor poisonous dragon wants to kill. If I fight with this person, my chances of winning are slim. But if I don't fight, I will certainly be killed by this person. Do I have no choice but to fight? The burly man in black armor gritted his teeth and turned around abruptly. He activated his magic treasure, wanting to attack Ning Fan. However, as soon as he turned around, he was greatly surprised. He saw that Ning Fan didn't have the intention to fight him at all. He directly entered the 46th palace and Ning Fan's shadow was nowhere to be seen. Ning Fan's strength was obviously much stronger than him, but he didn't have the intention to kill him and just left. Why didn't he kill me? With the hatred between the human race and the demon race, what reason does he have to let me go? The burly man in black armor was puzzled. Suddenly, his expression changed drastically. In less than a breath's time after Ning Fan entered the 46th palace, the 46th palace suddenly emitted a sky-piercing divine light. The appearance of the divine light meant that Ning Fan had passed the 46th palace. 1 breath's time. This person actually only used 1 breath's time to pass the 46th palace. I've seen old Monster High of the Sea Snake clan pass the 46th palace. That old Monster High was a late shell void cultivator. It took him the time for 3 incense sticks to burn to pass this palace. This person is definitely not a mid-shell void cultivator. This person. Could he be old Monster Swan Yen? After passing the 46th palace, Ning Fan did not immediately proceed to the 47th palace. His eyes were filled with a hint of doubt. This doubt was not because of the burly man in black armor but because of the 46th palace. At the moment when he passed the 46th palace, Ning Fan clearly felt the barbarian marks in his body emitting waves of heat. This time, the feeling was incomparably clear. Ning Fan was sure that it wasn't an illusion. He inspected his body and didn't find any unusual changes. After a moment of silence, he entered the 47th palace again. 10 breaths later, the 59th palace emitted a sky-piercing divine light and Ning Fan walked out from it. Another 10 breaths later, he passed the 67th palace and slowly walked out. Another 20 breaths later, he reached the 75th palace. The further he went, the stronger the aura force of the palace became. Ning Fan's speed of passing the palace unconsciously slowed down. He no longer pursued speed blindly. Even so, Ning Fan did not encounter any obstacles along the way. It didn't take him much time to reach the 96th palace. Outside the 96th palace, there was an old demon in blue robes meditating. His surname was Hai and people called him Old Monster Hai. He was born in the Sea Snake clan and had a late shell void cultivation base. Seeing Ning Fan slowly approaching him, Old Monster Hai narrowed his snake eyes and glanced at Ning Fan. His eyes flickered and then he closed his eyes again. Ghost-faced silver hair. Could this person be the person that old ancestor poisonous dragon wants to kill? He's just a mid-shell void cultivator. It's not worth mentioning. If it wasn't because of my injuries, I would only need 3 breaths to kill him. Forget it. Consider this kid lucky. My injuries haven't stabilized yet and it's not suitable for me to use my demon power. I'll let him live for a while longer. Old Monster Hai ignored Ning Fan's arrival and continued to meditate with his legs crossed. His attitude was almost arrogant. Wasn't he afraid that Ning Fan would launch a sneak attack on him? Of course, he wasn't afraid. If this kid dares to attack me, I can still kill him within 6 breaths even if I have to worsen my injuries. If this kid is timid and doesn't dare to attack me, I don't mind killing him after my injuries have stabilized. Old Monster Hai thought arrogantly. Ning Fan acted as if he did not see Old Monster Hai. He slowly walked past him and entered the 96th palace. Seeing that Ning Fan did not attack him but chose to enter the palace, Old Monster Hai opened his eyes and let out a strange laugh. He shook his head and muttered to himself. He doesn't dare to attack me, huh? This kid is really timid. As soon as Old Monster Hai's voice fell, he suddenly opened his eyes in disbelief and looked at the 96th palace. In just 3 breaths after Ning Fan entered the palace emitted a dazzling divine light. 3 breaths. This kid only used 3 breaths to pass through the 96th palace. What cultivation base does he have? Peak Shell Void Realm? No. Even a Peak Shell Void Realm expert wouldn't be as calm as him. Could it be the Thought Fragmentation Realm? Old Monster Hai could no longer maintain his composure. He stood up abruptly and dashed towards the direction of the 95th palace without daring to look at the 96th palace anymore. He was afraid that Ning Fan would return to where he came from after passing the 96th palace and attack him. Thus, he did not dare to stay in this place any longer. No matter how conceited Old Monster Hai was, he did not think that he would be a match for the Thought Fragmentation Old Monster. Currently, his injuries had yet to fully recover. If Ning Fan returns to where he came from to kill him, how could he withstand it? He might not even have the slightest chance of survival. After passing the 96th palace, the doubts in Ning Fan's eyes were slightly reduced. It was as if he had confirmed something. At the moment when he passed the 96th palace, the barbarian marks in his body emitted a fiery feeling again, 4696. These 2 numbers reminded Ning Fan of the scene when his barbarian marks broke through to the 46th and 96th lines and the barbarian blood was continuously produced in his body, 46, 96,156. Ning Fan muttered these 3 numbers in his heart. His eyes flickered and he walked towards the 97th palace. He did not plan to pay attention to Old Monster Hai who was running away. 156 meant that when the number of his barbarian marks increased to 156, the barbarian blood would be produced in his body again. He seemed to have some kind of speculation in his heart but he could not confirm it yet. The 97th palace was quickly passed by Ning Fan. Then, it was the 98th palace, the 99th palace, the 100th palace. After 100 breaths, Ning Fan arrived at the 111th palace and passed it. After walking out of the palace, Ning Fan arrived at the peak of the Sea of Clouds on the first floor of the Heaven Imperial Court and looked up at the dome of the heavens. If he goes further up, it would be the second floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. As long as he could tear the sky apart, he would be able to enter the second floor of the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. Others would naturally need to tear the sky apart in order to enter the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. However, before Ning Fan could lift his hand to tear the sky apart, a cold and inexperienced voice suddenly resounded from the peak of the Sea of Clouds. Only Ning Fan could hear that voice. Even though it sounded a little cold, it did not carry any hostility. "You are a true member of my clan. You are an orthodox barbarian. You have already condensed 224 barbarian marks within the first floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. You won't be able to obtain any benefits. Additionally, I will bestow upon you 10 drops of royal barbarian blood." Just as the voice fell, a blood-red vortex suddenly appeared at the peak of the Sea of Clouds. 10 drops of translucent black and red blood flew out of the vortex and directly flew to Ning Fan's side before disappearing into his body. Ning Fan's expression immediately changed. Those 10 drops of blood were actually the bloodline of the royal barbarian race. As soon as the 10 drops of barbarian blood entered his body, they were immediately devoured by the tribulation blood in his body in a domineering manner. The grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood had already reached the 9-star remnant blood. The day when it would break through to the true blood realm was originally still far away. After devouring the 10 drops of royal barbarian blood, the grade of Ning Fan's tribulation blood began to skyrocket. Even though it had yet to break through to the true blood realm, it had improved greatly from the base of the 9-star remnant blood realm. "Come, my clan member. Come to the top floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. I will wait for you." The blood-red whirlpool gradually disappeared and the Sea of Clouds returned to its original state. The voice also gradually disappeared. Before Ning Fan could react, a loud rumbling sound came from beneath his feet. A gigantic formation appeared on the ancient bluestone path. The formation flashed and Ning Fan directly disappeared from the first floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. He appeared at the entrance of the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. Others would need to tear open the sky of the first floor in order to enter the second floor. However, Ning Fan did not have to do that. Thus, he received special treatment. Who exactly is the owner of that voice? Why did he give me 10 drops of royal barbarian blood? That voice and chi are very unfamiliar. It's different from any of the barbarian ancestors. It's definitely not a barbarian ancestor. Who is that person? There were a total of 24 ancient bluestone paths on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. All of them led to the third floor. There were a total of 47 cultivators on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. Most of them were at the late shedding void realm and only a few of them were at the peak shedding void realm. Ning Fan's arrival did not tear open the sky. Thus, he did not make too much noise. His arrival was completely silent. No one noticed Ning Fan's arrival until a series of divine lights suddenly shone from one of the ancient bluestone paths. There were palaces that were continuously being broken through. Only then did it finally attract the attention of the group of old monsters. There were a total of 24 ancient bluestone paths on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. The path that Ning Fan was walking on was the 11th one. Other than Ning Fan, there were no other humans or demons on this path. Thus, no one would disturb Ning Fan's progress. The aura force of the palaces on the second floor of the Heaven Imperial Court was extremely strong. It was incomparable to the first floor. On this floor, even a late shedding Kong old monster would find it extremely difficult to break through the palaces. However, to Ning Fan, it was still not too difficult. Ning Fan only used 5 breaths to break through the first palace of the second floor. After that, he would break through a palace every 5 breaths. Wherever he passed by, there would be palaces emitting divine lights. The expressions of the other old monsters on the ancient roads changed when they noticed the divine lights coming from Ning Fan's direction. Hiss! On the 11th ancient road, there is someone breaking through a palace every 5 breaths. 5 breaths. What kind of speed is this? Who is this person? Could he be a thought-breaking expert? I can't see clearly. The mist here is too strong to block spirit sense. If we are not on the same ancient road, we won't be able to see what is happening there. The only thing we can see is this divine light that can pierce through the clouds. This thought-breaking senior seems to have paused. He used 10 breaths to break through the 45th palace. At the location of the 45th palace, Ning Fan slowed down his pace. His eyes flickered as he stepped into the palace. 46, 96, then 156, 156 minus 111, the result is 45. Ning Fan muttered. After entering the 45th palace, his barbarian mark once again emitted a fiery feeling. His eyes immediately turned solemn, as if the speculation in his heart was confirmed. As expected, Ning Fan didn't say anything else. He only stayed in the 45th palace for a while before he walked out of it and continued to move forward. He continued to move forward. None of the palaces in front of him could make his barbarian mark emit a slight fiery feeling. 46th palace, 47th palace, 48th palace, 49th palace. It didn't take Ning Fan a long time to break through the 111th palace. After passing through the 111th palace, Ning Fan reached the peak of the Sea of Clouds on the second floor of the Heavenly Tower. When he arrived at this place, another blood-red whirlpool appeared and 10 drops of royal barbarian blood flew out from it. The second floor. You didn't obtain any benefits. I will give you 10 drops of royal barbarian blood. Come, my clansmen. Come to the top of the Heavenly Tower. I'll be waiting for you, that voice resounded once again. This time, before the 10 drops of royal barbarian blood flew into his body and the blood-red whirlpool disappeared from the peak of the Sea of Clouds, Ning Fan directly activated the reverse spirit technique. Using the technique, he sensed the blood-red whirlpool in reverse. He could vaguely feel that the person who gave him the royal barbarian blood didn't mean him any harm. However, with his cautiousness, he wouldn't feel at ease if he didn't find out the other party's identity. Using the reverse perception of the reverse spirit technique, he sent a trace of his spirit sense into the whirlpool and directly arrived at the highest point of the 9 heavens imperial court. There stood a giant gate that was filled with lifeless chi. A gray moon hung in the sky. The ground within 1,000 zhang of the giant gate was littered with broken stones and many stone statues. That giant gate should be the legendary entrance to the heavenly desolate ancient realm. Those stone statues were of cultivators and strange beasts. Some of them had been weathered and damaged while some of them were still intact. There were more than 1,000 of these stone statues. Some of their expressions were filled with fear while some were filled with resentment. Behind the countless stone statues, there was a giant stone throne that had been weathered and cracked. On the throne, there was also a stone statue sitting on it. Judging from the appearance of the stone statue, it was an old man with a bare upper body. His lower body was wrapped in an animal skin skirt. His hair was tied into countless braids and his body was covered with petrified barbarian marks. Ning Fan vaguely felt that the appearance of the old man was familiar. Then, he recalled that he had seen it on the murals in various palaces. The chi on the old man's body was clearly the same as that of the blood-red whirlpool. The one who gave Ning Fan the royal barbarian blood was this stone statue. Is this the stone statue that repeatedly gave me the royal barbarian blood? Ning Fan's eyes flickered slightly. Just as he was about to withdraw his trace of spirit sense, an unprecedented sense of crisis suddenly rose in his heart. Gusts of gray wind suddenly appeared in this place. When the gray wind blew past, the trace of spirit sense that Ning Fan had spread to the highest point of the heaven's imperial court was directly wiped out. Ning Fan made a prompt decision and cut off the connection with that trace of spirit sense. He no longer dared to probe the situation at the highest point of the heaven's imperial court. Even though he acted quickly, a trace of gray still appeared in his sea of consciousness. That gray color made Ning Fan's scalp go numb. Once it entered Ning Fan's body, it immediately spread crazily, causing Ning Fan's body to stiffen and petrify bit by bit. Ning Fan's eyes became even more solemn. He could sense a trace of samsara power from the grey chi in his sea of consciousness. This kind of petrification could not be stopped by ordinary divine abilities. Only the samsara power or the power of the tribulation blood that existed on the same level as the samsara power could stop it, disperse. Ning Fan shouted coldly and directly displayed the power of the tribulation blood in his body. A scarlet-red light immediately covered his entire body. When the red light swept across, the trace of grey chi in his body was slowly wiped out. Chapter 9:16. There was only a trace of grey chi that invaded Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. Under the suppression of the Jia blood, it was quickly wiped out. The stiffness in his body gradually disappeared and the parts that were petrified gradually returned to normal. Seeing this, Ning Fan's expression softened and he quietly looked at the sea of clouds above his head. Above the sea of clouds, the blood-red vortex was disappearing bit by bit. Ning Fan did not continue to use the reverse spirit technique. Instead, he sensed the scenery on the other side of the vortex. The 10 drops of royal barbarian blood that the stone statue bestowed had already flown into Ning Fan's body and were devoured by the Jia blood in a domineering manner. After devouring the 10 drops of royal barbarian blood, the level of Ning Fan's Jia blood increased by a large margin. However, there was still a huge gap between him and the true blood realm. Regarding the changes of the Jia blood in his body, Ning Fan did not say anything about it. His expression was still a little solemn. His mind was still recalling the scene that he saw when he used the reverse spirit technique. Giant gate. Stone statue. Grey moon. What I saw using the reverse spirit technique is probably the entrance of the heavenly desolate ancient realm that the human race and demon race have been plotting for many years. The entrance of the heavenly desolate ancient realm is at the highest point of the heavenly imperial court. That place is filled with grey wind that contains the power of samsara. It gives me an extremely dangerous feeling. This place doesn't seem to be a good place. Also, I don't know the identity of that old man with the stone statue. Why did he call me the Orthodox Barbarian, and why did he give me 20 drops of royal barbarian blood? Moreover, although it was just a quick glance, I clearly sensed a trace of life force that was deeply hidden in the body of that old man. Was he also turned into a stone statue because of the grey chi? Is he not dead yet? He asked me to go to the highest point of the heavenly imperial court to see him. Should I go? Ning Fan's thoughts raced. After a while, he shook his head. He came to the 9 heavenly imperial court to take back the souls of the 1 million barbarians from the hands of the 7th ancestor. He did not want to care about other things for the time being. He also did not want to see that old man who had turned into a stone statue. The ancient green stone path under his feet lit up with circles of light of formations. In the next moment, Ning Fan's figure disappeared from the 2nd level and entered the 3rd level of the heavenly imperial court. At the entrance of the 3rd level of the heavenly imperial court, there were 6 demon cultivators sitting cross-legged. There were 7 to 8 corpses of human cultivators lying on the ground. When Ning Fan's figure appeared at the entrance of the 3rd floor, the 6 demon cultivators suddenly rose to their feet. All of them erupted with the aura force of the peak-shedding void realm. The 6 demon cultivators recognized Ning Fan's human chi. Their eyes flashed with ferocious light. However, there were also traces of doubt in their eyes. That's weird. This person didn't tear open the sky of the 2nd level. How did he enter the 3rd level of the heaven fault? Forget it. No matter how this person entered the 3rd level, I'll kill him first. Patriarch Poisonous Dragon ordered us to stay here and kill the Luo clan that enters this place. This kid seems to be only at the middle stage of void shedding, so it won't be difficult to kill him. And this kid had silver hair and a ghost face. He was the person that Patriarch Poisonous Dragon had placed a bounty on. Kill him and you can obtain an Emperor-grade embryonic pill from the clan. When they thought of the generous reward of the Emperor-grade embryonic pill, the hearts of the 6 demon cultivators raced. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as if they were looking at a fat sheep. The 6 demon cultivators had stayed behind because they were under orders to kill the humans that had fallen from the sky. Seeing that Ning Fan's cultivation base was not high, the 6 demon cultivators naturally had the intention to kill him. When they saw that Ning Fan was the person that Patriarch Poisonous Dragon had placed a bounty on, they naturally had to kill him. Each of the 6 demon cultivators carried a demon sword case on their back. The sword chi inside the case was towering. As soon as Ning Fan appeared, before he could see the scenery in front of him clearly, 2 demon cultivators, one tall and one skinny, had already taken a step forward. At the same time, they formed a hand seal and shouted, G Water Demon Sword, slash. Han Valley Demon Sword, slash. Immediately, the sword cases on the backs of the 2 demons let out a sonorous and forceful sword cry. Then, 2 rays of sword light, one purple and one red, flew out of the sword cases with a chi sound and slashed towards Ning Fan's left and right. The other 4 demon cultivators moved and blocked Ning Fan's 4 sides. They did not attack Ning Fan, but they blocked all of his escape routes. They did not intend to give Ning Fan any chance to escape. The 6 demons had a tacit understanding with each other. They had already joined hands to kill many shedding void realm humans. Any one of them was not a weakling among those at the peak shedding void realm. From their point of view, Ning Fan, who was just at the mid-shedding void realm, could be killed with 90% certainty with 2 of them attacking him at the same time. The bounty for the Emperor-grade embryonic pill was just within their reach. Unfortunately, the 6 demons had underestimated Ning Fan's strength. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. Along his journey, he had encountered many demon cultivators, but he did not kill them. However, it did not mean that he was soft-hearted and would not kill them. If people do not offend me, I will not offend them. Since these few demon cultivators had come to seek death, he naturally would not show them any mercy. Bang! Ning Fan's body suddenly erupted with red light that soared into the sky. That red light then turned into 2 scarlet giant hands that directly grabbed the 2 demon swords. The grade of the 2 demon swords was not ordinary. They were 5th Nirvana Nascent Heaven Flying Swords. In terms of grade, they were slightly higher than Ning Fan's 4-minute swords. However, under the grasp of the giant red hand, the 2 swords actually let out a loud bang and were forcefully shattered into powder by the force of that grasp. 1 claw and the 2 swords were destroyed. The 2 peak-shedding void realm demon cultivators who cultivated with the 2 swords immediately coughed out blood and retreated. When they looked at Ning Fan again, their eyes were filled with astonishment. Not only the 2 of them, the other 4 demons were also greatly astonished. Being able to destroy 2 5th Nirvana Nascent Heaven demon swords in a single strike was definitely not something that a mid-shedding void realm cultivator could possess. What kind of ability is that red light? It can actually destroy the 5th Nirvana Nascent Heaven demon swords in a single strike. This person is definitely not a mid-shedding void realm cultivator. Even a peak-shedding void realm cultivator would have a hard time withstanding our joint attack. However, this person managed to break it in a single strike. Even if he is not a thought-fragmenting old monster, he must be a peak-shedding void realm cultivator who has half a step into the thought-fragmenting realm. Let's attack together and kill this young man. Don't hold back anymore. The 6 demons' expressions were solemn. As they moved, they changed their positions. From their positions, they seemed to be in line with the formation. They had vaguely surrounded Ning Fan at the center of the formation. The cold light in Ning Fan's eyes intensified. He would certainly not give the 6 demons the chance to set up the formation. The Grand Firmament Tribulation Spirit at the 1-star True Blood realm was considered as having minor accomplishment in Tribulation blood. With just the strength of his bloodline, he was already invincible in the Shedding Void realm. After devouring 20 drops of Royal Barbarian blood, even though Ning Fan's Tribulation blood had yet to break through to the True Blood realm, it was much stronger than before. Currently, Ning Fan might not necessarily lose to a late Shedding Void realm cultivator just by relying on the might of his Tribulation blood. In the desolate land which was suppressed by the power of the Forbidden Immortal realm, Ning Fan could even put up a fight against a late thought-fragmenting Void realm cultivator. Why would he be afraid of a few peak-shedding Void realm cultivators? Devour. A red light flashed in Ningfan's eyes. At this moment, tribulation clouds covered heaven and earth densely. The red light fell like lightning. It was as if the end of the world was coming. Rumbling sounds echoed incessantly, causing the sea of clouds in the area to tumble. He flicked his sleeves. The red light of the tribulation sense around him immediately swept out like a violent gust of wind. It turned into 6 rays of scarlet finger light and pointed at each of the 6 demons. The speed of the finger light was too fast. It was so fast that the 6 demons did not have the time to defend themselves. The finger light had already reached their eyes. Their spiritual equipment and demon armors were crushed by the finger light and it penetrated their bodies. As soon as the finger light penetrated their bodies, the 6 demons immediately coughed out blood and retreated. Their bodies even began to feel stiff. Every time they took a step back, the stiffness would increase. When they took the 7th step back, they suddenly realized that they could no longer take another step back. At this moment, all of them had lost control of their bodies. Due to the destruction of the red light of the tribulation sense in their bodies, they were unable to move at all. It was as if their bodies no longer belonged to them. Even though their consciousness still existed, they could not move their fingers at all. As soon as they looked inside their bodies, they immediately realized that their bodies had been controlled by the scarlet evil red light, depriving them of the right to control their bodies. The red light was not only eroding their consciousness. As time passed, the 6 demons could no longer remain clear-headed. Their eyes became bloodthirsty and violent. Gradually, there was an urge and a thirst in their hearts. They wanted to kill each other, to disown their own kin, and to kill their own kind. They had already gone mad. What is this divine ability, but? I'm afraid, in the end, the consciousness of the 6 demon cultivators was completely eroded by the power of the tribulation sense. They had been affected by Ningfan's tribulation sense technique and turned into his loyal servants, pure killing machines. Unfortunately, Ningfan did not need such loyal servants. After the 6 of them had fallen into oblivion, Ningfan glanced at them coldly. He raised his hand and took out the memory-severing Dao sword, piercing through their dantian and killing their demon souls. After casually keeping the storage pouches and demon swords of the 6 demons, Ningfan glanced at the ancient bluestone paths and chose one of them before stepping into it. There were a total of 36 ancient bluestone paths on the 3rd floor of the Heavenly Imperial Court. All of them led to the 4th floor. The path that Ningfan took was the 19th one. No one had ever taken this path before. He used a very short amount of time to kill the 6 demons. However, the disturbance he caused was huge. In the 3rd floor, there were still 13 early thought fragmentation realm old monsters who were trying to break through the palace. They more or less sensed the fluctuations caused by Ningfan killing the 6 demons. However, because the clouds and mist were too thick and they were too far away, they could not find out what was happening at the entrance. Judging by the momentum of the battle, could it be that there are thought fragmentation realm old monsters fighting here? Mounz was sitting cross-legged on the ground outside the 84th palace on the 7th ancient path. He was trying his best to recover his magic power. He had quite a lot of injuries on his body. Old ancestor Jin Hua was sitting cross-legged on the ground outside the 84th palace on the 9th ancient path. He had quite a lot of injuries on his body and was recuperating. Old ancestor Jin Hua was slightly shocked when he sensed the terrifying fluctuations coming from the entrance. However, he did not say anything. The 11th ancient path, the 12th ancient path, the 14th ancient path. Each of the thought fragmentation realm old monsters noticed the fluctuations caused by Ningfan's divine ability. Their expressions changed. Most of the early thought fragmentation realm old monsters stopped at the 84th palace. It was actually difficult for them to break through this palace with their cultivation base. Are the 6 demons of Si Shui all dead? Humph. I wonder which human thought fragmentation realm old monster couldn't bear to see the 6 demons killing the human race that had fallen from the sky. That's why he finally attacked them. On the 21st ancient path, a snake-haired old man noticed that the 6 life tablets in his storage pouch had shattered. His expression darkened. This snake-haired old man's face was covered with snake scales. His chi was extremely cold. He was born in the heaven-devouring Python clan, a great true spirit clan. He was extremely strong. Among those at the early thought fragmentation realm, he rarely met a worthy opponent. Among the 6 demons, one of them cultivated a cultivation method that was very useful to me. I originally planned to nurture this demon into a python cauldron. However, I didn't expect that this demon would be killed by a human old monster. Humph. That human old monster who killed the 6 demons has stepped onto the 19th ancient path. Consider himself lucky. If he steps onto this ancient path of mine, I will certainly teach him a painful lesson. The snake-haired old man let out a cold humph and entered the 84th palace in a flash. A few breaths later, the snake-haired old man let out a muffled groan and flew out of the palace while spurting out blood. His expression was vaguely filled with unwillingness. Damn it! The aura force of the 84th palace is actually a few times stronger than the 83rd palace. Without a mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivation base, I really can't pass through it. I don't believe it. The snake-haired old man adjusted his breathing and entered the 84th palace again. A moment later, he spurted out blood and flew out of the palace again. I can't pass through it. He sighed dejectedly. Suddenly, he noticed something and was slightly stunned. That human old monster who killed the 6 demons has just reached the 3rd palace and he can't go any further. The snake-haired old man's spirit sense vaguely locked onto the 19th ancient path and Ning Fan's direction. He noticed that Ning Fan had already entered the 3rd palace for more than 10 breaths. However, the 3rd palace had yet to emit the divine light of passing through. Why didn't he stop at the 4th palace? The snake-haired old man muttered to himself. The 3rd level of the heavenly fault was obviously different from the 2nd level. This difference was specifically aimed at Ning Fan. Ning Fan walked along the 19th ancient path and passed through the 1st palace and the 2nd palace. These 2 palaces were nothing special to him. However, when he entered the 3rd palace of the 3rd level, he immediately noticed the changes of the barbarian marks in his body. There were originally only 224 barbarian marks in his body. However, when he reached the 3rd palace of the 3rd level, his body vaguely formed the 225th barbarian mark. Passing through the palaces of the 9 heavens imperial court can actually increase the number of barbarian marks. Ning Fan's eyes flashed as if he was more certain of something. When the number of barbarian marks reached 46, 96, and 156, a new barbarian blood would be born in Ning Fan's body. In the 9 heavens imperial court, the aura force of the palaces would increase when he reached the 46th and 96th palaces. In the 45th palace of the 2nd level, the aura force of the palace would also increase. If one were to calculate carefully, the 45th palace of the 2nd level of the heavenly fault was exactly the 156th palace that Ning Fan had passed through. The 3rd palace of the 3rd level was the 225th palace that Ning Fan had passed through. There was no increase in the number of barbarian marks in the 224 palaces that Ning Fan had passed through. However, there was an increase in the number of barbarian marks here. Previously, I guessed that the 9 heavens imperial court is related to the cultivation of the barbarian marks of the barbarian summoning technique. Now, it seems like my guess is correct. Ning Fan's eyes flashed and he walked out of the 3rd palace. Immediately, the 3rd palace emitted a towering divine light. With a sway of his body, he entered the 4th palace. Just like the 4th palace, his eyes narrowed. The aura force of the 4th palace was a few times stronger than that of the 3rd palace. Without an early thought fragmentation realm cultivation base, one would definitely be sent out by the aura force of the palace. The 4th palace is the 226th palace that I have passed through. In this palace, the aura force of the palace has obviously increased. Ning Fan walked forward step by step while withstanding the pressure that was as heavy as a mountain. Along the way, he passed through the palaces with a relaxed expression. However, when he reached this place, he finally felt that every step was difficult. In the fourth palace, Ning Fan spent nearly 100 breaths to pass through the aura force. The moment he passed through the fourth palace, the number of barbarian marks in his body had reached 226. Barbarian blood was produced in his body once again. 46, 96,156. After that, it's 226. I seem to have found a pattern. The next time I produce barbarian blood, will the number of barbarian marks be 306? 306 should correspond to the 84th palace of the third floor. The barbarian blood that was constantly being produced in his body was being devoured by the Jia blood in a domineering manner. The level of the Jia blood increased once again. He was even closer to breaking through to the one-star true blood. As the level of the Jia blood increased slightly, the aura force of the palace seemed to have lessened. Ning Fan's footsteps became lighter. The fifth palace, the sixth palace, the seventh palace. Ning Fan kept advancing. As the aura force of the palaces continued to increase, he could only pass through one palace every 20 breaths. Each time he passed through a palace, the number of barbarian marks in his body would increase by 1. When he passed through the 78th palace, the number of barbarian marks in his body had reached 300. In the 78th palace, Ning Fan welcomed the third tribulation of becoming the young barbarian minister. In the blink of an eye, his skin and flesh began to wither. The life force in his body was being devoured by the barbarian marks at a crazy rate. This kind of devouring was different from the backlash of the barbarian marks. It was no longer up to the barbarian marks. In order to pass the third tribulation, the amount of life force needed was much greater than the previous two. If Ning Fan couldn't pass the third tribulation, his life force would be exhausted and he would die. However, if Ning Fan passes the third tribulation, he would have 300 barbarian marks and awaken the bloodline of the barbarian ancestor. Then, he would become the young barbarian minister, a barbarian cultivator with ancestral bloodline. The arrival of the tribulation was silent. The thought-breaking old monsters on the third floor naturally did not notice the arrival of the tribulation. However, someone sensed the chi of this place. The fourth ancestor's expression changed drastically in the 95th palace of the 6th floor. He sensed the chi of the tribulation coming from the heavenly imperial court. The 17th palace of the 7th floor. The second ancestor was about to pass through this palace. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked down, as if he had discovered something extremely shocking. The 49th palace of the 7th floor. The first ancestor protected himself with the bone sword and walked towards the other side of the palace while withstanding the heavy aura force. At the moment when Ning Fan's tribulation descended, the first ancestor took out a bronze mirror and saw Ning Fan's ghostly face and silver-haired appearance. Impossible. Even if he is the great firmament tribulation spirit, it's impossible for him to trigger the third tribulation. Other than the barbarian race, there shouldn't be any other foreign race that is qualified to trigger the third tribulation. It's impossible for cultivators who aren't from the barbarian race to obtain the recognition of the 12 barbarian gods. It's also impossible for them to trigger the third tribulation. What kind of ability does this young man have to trigger the third tribulation? Could it be that his true identity is a barbarian? He's not a human. None of the 3 barbarian ancestors expected Ning Fan to trigger the third tribulation. Even the 5th ancestor who planted the barbarian summoning technique on Ning Fan did not expect that he would trigger the third tribulation one day. Only barbarians could use the barbarian summoning technique to obtain the recognition of the barbarian gods and trigger the third tribulation. This rule was set by the 12 barbarian gods at the same time. The barbarian gods were the gods that all barbarians including the first ancestor worshipped. They were the real ancestors who imitated the tribulation blood and created the barbarian bloodline. As a matter of fact, the ancient savage region that was ruled by the Fan family was just a branch of the barbarian race. Under the rule of the great firmament tribulation spirit, there were many barbarian tribes like the Fan family. They were the descendants of the 12 barbarian gods. I didn't expect that the barbarian mark that the 5th ancestor planted in this young man's body would trigger the third tribulation and become his fortune. If this young man successfully passes the third tribulation, his body will produce a drop of ancestor realm barbarian blood. Can this young man pass the third tribulation? If he does. The first ancestor's expression of shock disappeared and the corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Forget it. It's good if this young man can break through the ancestor realm barbarian bloodline. At that time, he won't only be useful to us, the barbarian ancestors, to heal our wounds. He can be of greater use. For example, we can offer him to the Lord who is sleeping on the highest floor of the Heaven Imperial Court, the 15th palace on the 8th floor of the Heaven Imperial Court. The 7th ancestor, Fan Ma Kong, walked forward while withstanding the pressure. Just like the other 3 barbarian ancestors, he also sensed the tribulation in Ning Fan's body. However, he was not as surprised as the other 3 and was too lazy to pay attention to Ning Fan. His expression was still blank and numb, like a machine that only knew how to complete a task. He had overcome all obstacles along the way just to ascend to the highest floor of the Heaven Imperial Court because his true self had given him a task there. My name is Fan Ma Kong. I am the 7th barbarian ancestor. On the day of my death, I borrowed the power of the karma beast that I obtained from killing the tribulation venerables of the upper world and sent my will into the illusory world to form my true self. I tried to control the fate of the arbiter of fate. My memories are very vague. I can't remember many things clearly. Most of my memories have been taken away by my true self. I have a task that my true self has given me. I must ascend to the highest floor of the Heaven Imperial Court and plant this goo in the body of the 9th barbarian god. I want to turn the 9th barbarian god into my 3rd clone. The 7th ancestor, Fan Ma Kong, moved forward with numb eyes. He carried a small bottle which contained a goo. It was stolen by his true self from the Goo tribe of the Southern Clan in the Eastern Heaven Immortal World. He also had a banner with him. Inside the banner were the souls of the 1 million barbarians that Ning Fan had saved in the past. There were also countless barbarian souls with blank eyes. Most of them were barbarians who had died in the blood sacrifice. These souls were collected by him using the soul summoning technique. They were the catalyst to activate the mysterious goo poison. Fan Ma Kong's eyes were blank. He did not expect that his action of collecting the barbarian souls would attract an ominous star that had already entered the 9 Heavens Imperial Court and was chasing after him. His intelligence was very low. He only knew that his instinct was to complete the task given to him by his true self. He would not ask about things that were unrelated to the task. On the 3rd level of the Heaven Imperial Court, in the 84th palace on the 21st ancient path, the snake-haired old man failed again. He flew out of the palace while coughing out blood. This was the 15th time that he had failed in the 84th palace. Can I really not pass it? I'm already familiar with the distribution of the aura force in this palace. If I use some tricks, I might be able to. Just as the snake-haired old man was thinking about a plan to pass this palace, his expression suddenly changed. Dark clouds suddenly appeared in the direction of the 19th ancient path. The dark clouds were completely different from the sea of clouds that was enshrouded in white mist. It gave the snake-haired old man an extremely uneasy feeling. Within the dense dark clouds, a voice came from afar. It was cold and indifferent, sending chills down the spines of those who heard it. Sha Gu. The dark clouds were released by Ning Fan's divine ability. The dark clouds were the phenomenon triggered by the Fu Li clan's most powerful divine ability, the returning Ruin Finger. Ning Fan needed a large amount of life force to pass the 3rd trial for his barbarian mark to devour. His own life force was not enough for the barbarian mark to devour. Thus, he could only obtain it from the outside world. The cultivator who was closest to him was the snake-haired old man who was on the 21st ancient path. This person had been locking Ning Fan's spirit sense with hidden hostility. This hostility did not escape Ning Fan's eyes. Thus, when Ning Fan needed life force the most, he directly chose to seize it from this person. Dark clouds covered the entire sky from the direction of the 19th ancient path. Suddenly, a gigantic vortex appeared in the center of the dark clouds. Inside the vortex, the shadow of a black-robed Ning Fan appeared. He suddenly descended in the direction of the snake-haired old man and said coldly, "Give me the life force in your body. This is your punishment for showing hostility to me. Go wash up and sleep." Chapter 9:17. Give me the life force in your body. This is your punishment for showing hostility towards me. The black-robed Ning Fan's tone was extremely domineering. As soon as he landed on the ancient green stone path, he immediately walked towards the snake-haired old man. The snake-haired old man was initially feeling a little uneasy. However, when he sensed the chi of Ning Fan's cultivation base, his heart was immediately relieved. He narrowed his eyes and said with a cold smile, "You want me to give you the life force in my body? Humph! How arrogant! Junior. If I'm not mistaken, your cultivation base should only be at the mid-shedding void realm before you were suppressed by the forbidden immortal power, right? How dare a junior like you speak arrogantly to me and try to seize the life force in my body? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. According to my rules, since you spoke rudely to me, you must atone for it with your death. I won't kill you with my own hands. Just commit suicide so that you won't be humiliated in my hands." As soon as he finished speaking, the snake-haired old man stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the sky with the temperament of a senior expert. He did not put Ning Fan who was approaching him in his eyes at all. From the snake-haired old man's point of view, it was already merciful of him to give Ning Fan the chance to commit suicide after Ning Fan had spoken arrogantly to him. If Ning Fan refuses to commit suicide obediently, I don't mind killing this junior shedding void realm with my own hands. Ning Fan ignored the snake-haired old man and continued walking towards him. Seeing that Ning Fan was unwilling to commit suicide, the snake-haired old man opened his eyes impatiently and snorted. "Stubborn fool. Since you refuse to commit suicide, I will send you to hell with my own hands. Let me show you the terror of a thought-breaking realm cultivator." Dao Sense Technique, Green Flood Dragon Transformation into Scissors. The snake-haired old man suddenly put his hands together. Immediately, two gigantic shadows of green flood dragons intertwined with each other appeared between heaven and earth. It was the Dao image that he had cultivated for many years. The Dao image shone brightly. The two entangled dragons actually turned into a gigantic pair of scissors. It directly descended and cut towards Ning Fan's waist. This is this old man's unique skill. You should be proud that you can die under this technique. As soon as he finished speaking, the snake-haired old man closed his eyes slightly as if he had already foreseen the scene where Ning Fan would be cut by the green flood dragon scissors. Facing the green flood dragon scissors attack, Ning Fan just slowly raised his right hand and pointed with his index finger. Shagu. A demonic wind blew between heaven and earth, and the black fog surged over. Above the sea of clouds, an enormous black butterfly demon image slowly appeared. It seemed illusory, like a black-colored flame that flickered indeterminately, and it emanated an ominous and evil aura. As the black-robed Ning Fan uttered the word Kashigu, the billowing black mist instantly condensed into a 1000 zhang ray of light which directly pressed down on the green WYRM scissors. With a loud bang, the green flood dragon scissors was directly crushed into countless pieces by Ning Fan's finger. The snake-haired old man, who was closing his eyes and pretending to be an expert, suddenly opened his eyes, which were full of disbelief. Before he could react, Ning Fan's 1000 zhang finger light had already rushed towards him and pressed down on his head. As soon as the finger beam pressed down, the snake-haired old man's entire body felt like it was about to be torn apart, and he felt endless pain. The enormous power of the finger spread out, and the snake-haired old man immediately flew backward while vomiting blood. After flying for a distance of 1000 feet, he fell heavily on the ancient bluestone road. His whole body seemed to have become a bloody man. The current him no longer had the slightest disdain in his eyes. Instead, there was only shock and fear. He knew that he had misjudged Ning Fan. Ning Fan was definitely not a junior Shikong. This finger attack of this person is too strong. Even if I am not careless and use all my strength, I certainly won't be able to withstand this attack head-on. I can only retreat. This person is definitely not Shikong. Even if he isn't at the late thought fragmentation realm, he must be at the mid thought fragmentation realm, who is half a step away from it. Damn it. If I knew that this person is strong, I wouldn't have dared to talk nonsense with him. I would certainly have escaped long ago. At this moment, the snake-haired old man's heart was filled with regret. Ning Fan ignored the snake-haired old man. He raised his finger again and pointed at the snake-haired old man. Kashi-gu. As the finger was pointed, endless black mist immediately appeared above the sea of clouds. It was like a black ocean, directly drowning the snake-haired old man. The black mist seemed to have a sealing power. Being inside the black mist, the snake-haired old man could not move at all. Within the black mist, there was a suction force that devoured the demonic power in the snake-haired old man's body, constantly erasing his cultivation base. That kind of erasure could not be defended at all. One breath erased 1,000 years of cultivation base. 10 breaths erased 10,000 years of cultivation base. The snake-haired old man had a profound cultivation base. Losing 10,000 years of cultivation base was nothing to him. However, what made him panic was that the life force in his body was also being crazily devoured by the black mist at a terrifying speed. If he was not seriously injured by Ning Fan's finger attack, he might still be able to slightly resist the loss of life force. However, at this moment, his injuries were extremely serious and he no longer had the strength to resist the loss of life force. In just 10 breaths, 90% of the snake-haired old man's life force was directly extracted by Ning Fan. After 10 breaths, the black mist gradually dissipated. Looking at the snake-haired old man who was on the verge of death, Ning Fan frowned. It's not enough. Even if I drain all the life force in this snake-haired old man's body, it's still not enough for the barbarian mark to devour. Forget it. I'll drain all the life force in this person's body first. Ning Fan lifted his finger again, as if he wanted to use the returning void finger again to take away all the life force of the snake-haired old man. The snake-haired old man collapsed to the ground. As soon as he saw Ning Fan lifting his finger again, his face turned pale with fright and he begged for mercy. Fellow Taoist, please wait. If you have something to say, we can talk it out. Please don't drain my life force again. 90% of the life force in my body has already been drained by fellow Taoist. If the remaining 10% is also drained, I will definitely die. I can see it now. Fellow Taoist, didn't you just reach a bottleneck in your cultivation and you need a large amount of life force for your cultivation? As for the life force, it's not a problem. I have plenty of it. As long as fellow Taoists spare my life, I am willing to offer you a treasure. The life force contained in it is definitely enough for fellow Taoists' cultivation. Fellow Taoist, let's make a deal. If you spare my life, I will give you a treasure. Ah! Fellow Taoist, please have mercy. Before the snake-haired old man could finish his words, Ning Fan directly grabbed his neck and lifted him up like a little chick. He was originally short and was only a little taller than a dwarf. Now that he was lifted up by Ning Fan, he looked a little funny. What is the treasure that you mentioned that contains the life force? Ning Fan asked coldly. It's... I can't say it. Fellow Taoist hasn't agreed to spare my life yet. I don't dare to say it. Once I say it, fellow Taoist will definitely. Ah! The snake-haired old man suddenly let out a miserable shriek and fainted. Ning Fan was too lazy to talk nonsense with the snake-haired old man. He directly used the reverse spirit technique to search his soul. After searching his soul, Ning Fan's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He took away the snake-haired old man's storage pouch and threw him on the ground. After searching the pouch for a while, Ning Fan took out a piece of purple python bone from it. As soon as Ning Fan saw that the life force contained in this python bone was actually 100 times more than the life force in the snake-haired old man's body, he immediately nodded his head in satisfaction. This item is a piece of bone left behind by the ancestor of the heaven-devouring python clan after he passed away. Once a member of the heaven-devouring python clan dies, they will retract their life force into their bones and pass it on to their descendants. If I don't have this bone, I might need to seize the life force of a few more people to have enough for my barbarian mark to devour. With this bone, it can save me some trouble. Ning Fan kept the python bone and frowned slightly. He glanced at the snake-haired old man and said indifferently, "Don't pretend to be dead. The python bone that you offered is quite useful to me. I can let you go and spare your life. But the premise is that you help me unseal the python bone." The python bone did contain a large amount of life force, but it was in a sealed state. The seal was not strong. If Ning Fan wanted to, he could easily break it. However, the seal was extremely special. If the seal was broken in the wrong way, the life force contained in the python bone would dissipate in an instant. The correct way to break the seal could only be performed by the members of the heaven-devouring python clan. That was to use the power of the demon bloodline of the heaven-devouring python to break the seal. Outsiders who did not have the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python would not be able to break the seal. The snake-haired old man was still unconscious on the ground. He did not seem to have any reaction to Ning Fan's words. Seeing that, Ning Fan raised his finger again, as if he was going to use the returning ruin finger again to take the snake-haired old man's life. As soon as the snake-haired old man saw that Ning Fan was going to use the returning ruin finger again, he who was unconscious on the ground quickly got up from the ground and exclaimed in a hurry, "Fellow Taoist, please stop. You can't. If you use this finger, I will definitely die. You're not pretending to be dead anymore. I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not pretending anymore." Hee hee, the snake-haired old man smiled awkwardly at Ning Fan. Then, he rolled his eyes and said, "I didn't take a closer look just now. Only now did I realize that fellow Taoist is actually a fake ancient demon. Hee hee. It turns out that fellow Taoist is a fellow Taoist of my demon race. I apologize for my rudeness. I wonder which race are you from? Just now, when fellow Taoist searched my memory, what you used seemed to be the reverse spirit technique of the true dragon clan. This technique seems to only be performed by the ancient immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. How did fellow Taoist manage to?" On the surface, the snake-haired old man was smiling apologetically. Actually, his heart was already filled with huge waves. He was secretly guessing if Ning Fan was the ancient immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. Otherwise, he would definitely not be able to cultivate the reverse spirit technique. Ning Fan did not intend to waste his breath on the snake-haired old man. He directly tossed the python bone to him. "I'll give you the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Unseal this python bone. If you can't do it, you will die. If you say another word of nonsense, you will die." The snake-haired old man caught the python bone in a flurry. His entire body was filled with cold air. How would he dare to talk nonsense with Ning Fan anymore? He obediently shut his mouth. He looked at the python bone in his hand with a slightly complicated expression and then looked at Ning Fan. Then, he clenched his teeth and sat cross-legged on the ground. He activated the bloodline power in his body and began to unseal the python bone. Sigh. In the past, I only managed to obtain such a small piece of the ancestral python bone from my clan after making countless contributions. I didn't expect that I would have to give it to someone else before I could devour it. Forget it. As long as I can keep my life, what's the harm in giving up this python bone? This person is highly likely to be an immortal venerables of the true dragon clan. I can't afford to offend him. I just hope that he can keep his promise and spare my life after I help him unseal this bone. In just the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the snake-haired old man completed the unsealing of the python bone and handed it to Ning Fan respectfully. Ning Fan took the python bone and looked at it. Then, he nodded with satisfaction. With a flash, his body immediately shattered into countless black demonic lights and disappeared from the 21st ancient path. At the same time, in the 78th palace of the 19th ancient path, Ning Fan, who had been meditating with his eyes closed, opened his eyes for the first time. From the beginning to the end, Ning Fan's true body did not leave the 19th ancient path. He just used his divine ability to transform into a black-robed demon form and descended beside the snake-haired old man. That was all. Currently, Ning Fan's life force had been severely depleted. As he withdrew his divine ability, a large amount of life force immediately appeared in his body and a purple python bone appeared in his hand. Ning Fan placed the python bone on his knees and touched it with his finger, absorbing the life force within it. Gradually, the barbarian marks in his body devoured enough life force. The backlash began to lessen and gradually subsided. Gradually, Ning Fan's ears were filled with illusory sounds of barbarians chanting scriptures. It seemed to be very close but also very far away at the same time. It was difficult to hear the content of the scriptures clearly. He sat cross-legged in the main hall. The barbarian marks on his body constantly gave off a scorching feeling. At the same time, the shadow of an ancient statue slowly appeared behind him. The ancient statue was not solid. It only had a head, no face, and its limbs were only rough outlines. It was roughly in the shape of a human. At the moment when the ancient statue was formed, Ning Fan's body produced more and more barbarian blood. Within the barbarian blood, there were traces of bloodline memories that flowed into Ning Fan's sea of consciousness. Those bloodline memories were related to the 9 damaged tribulations of the young barbarian priest. Only now did Ning Fan know that the backlash that would occur when the number of barbarian marks reached 100 was called the damaged tribulation. What he had just passed was the 3rd damaged tribulation of the young barbarian priest. Ning Fan abruptly opened his eyes and looked at the ancient statue behind him. From the memories of his bloodline, Ning Fan knew that this ancient statue was called the young barbarian statue by the barbarian cultivators in the barbarian race. It was the symbol of the young barbarian priest of each tribe. Condensing the young barbarian statue meant that one had become the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. I'm not a barbarian. I actually became the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. It's the chi of the young barbarian statue. That young man has really condensed the young barbarian statue. On the 6th and 7th floor of the heavenly tower, the first ancestor, the second ancestor and the fourth ancestor were shocked. They stopped moving and looked at the direction of the heavenly tower with deep eyes. Others might not be able to sense the formation of the young barbarian statue, but the 3 of them who were the barbarian ancestors could sense it. At this moment, the second ancestor and the fourth ancestor's eyes were filled with greed. Since Ning Fan had passed the 3rd damaged tribulation and condensed the young barbarian statue, theoretically, his body should have produced a drop of the barbarian race's ancestral blood. If they devour this drop of Ning Fan's ancestral blood, they would certainly gain a lot of benefits. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor really wanted to rush to the 3rd floor of the heavenly tower to kill Ning Fan and devour his bloodline. Unfortunately, the 2 of them did not have the time to care about Ning Fan at the moment. They had to climb all the way to the highest floor of the heavenly tower. What a pity. I really want to devour this young man. The second ancestor and the fourth ancestor said regretfully. The first ancestor's eyes, however, were filled with fervor and seriousness. There was not much greed in them. I didn't expect this young man to really become the young barbarian minister. In this case, the ancestral barbarian blood that this young man possesses can become the best sacrificial offering to awaken the 9th barbarian god. The only pity is that this young man is currently in the lower floor of the heavenly tower. I'm in a hurry to head to the highest floor of the heavenly tower. I don't have the time to return to the lower floor to capture this young man. Forget it. I still have a few sacrificial offerings that can be used. It's not like I have to use this young man. The first ancestor shook his head. He withdrew his gaze and continued to move forward. Even though he really wanted to capture Ning Fan and turn him into a sacrificial offering, it was a pity that he did not have the time to do so now. On the 3rd floor of the heavenly tower, in the 78th palace of the 19th ancient road. As soon as he condensed his own young barbarian statue, Ning Fan's body immediately produced a large amount of barbarian blood. Vaguely, there was even a drop of ancestral barbarian blood forming in Ning Fan's body. From the memories of his bloodline, he already knew that what he had just gone through was the third damage tribulation of the young barbarian minister. He also knew that once he goes through the third ancestral blood tribulation and becomes the young barbarian minister, his body would produce a drop of ancestral barbarian blood. Ning Fan already knew all of this. However, when he sensed that there was an additional drop of ancestral blood in his body, he could not help but feel a little moved. An ordinary immortal venerable from the ancient times would need to spend at least millions of years of hard work to produce a drop of ancestral blood. He had just gone through the third damage tribulation of the young barbarian minister and he could already produce a drop of ancestral blood. It was really a great benefit for him. Unfortunately, the ancestral blood did not stay in Ning Fan's body for long before it was devoured by the Jie blood. The ancestral barbarian blood was devoured without any hesitation. Being a Jie blood, that was how capricious he was. The aura force of the ancestral barbarian blood rose from Ning Fan's body. Very quickly, that aura force dissipated and mixed with the aura force of the Jie blood. I didn't expect this Jie blood to be so domineering. It can even devour ancestral barbarian blood. Ning Fan's eyes were solemn as he muttered to himself. He could not help but be solemn. After absorbing the bloodline power of the entire drop of ancestral blood, the level of his Jie blood skyrocketed once again. The level of his Jie blood was originally 9-star broken blood. The difference between 9-star broken blood and 1-star true blood was like the distance between heaven and earth. It was extremely huge. Under normal circumstances, it was unimaginably difficult for him to break through to the true blood Jie blood. However, with the help of this drop of ancestral barbarian blood, the difficulty was reduced by a lot. Ning Fan sat cross-legged on the ground. The red light on his body became denser and denser. The Jie blood was boiling in his body. The level of the Jie blood was slowly approaching the level of 1-star true blood. Large amounts of red tribulation clouds began to appear in the entire third level of the heaven fault. Vaguely, there was the first scarlet bolt of heavenly tribulation lightning striking down from the sky. It was followed by the second, the third, and the fourth bolt of lightning. More and more tribulation lightning formed in the sky and struck down towards the sea of clouds. One by one, the early thought fragmentation realm old monsters who were challenging the third level of the heaven fault hurriedly walked out of their palaces and looked towards the sky. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the red tribulation lightning. No one knew why the heavenly tribulation phenomenon would appear in the third level of the heaven fault. No one knew what the red tribulation lightning signified. No one knew that the red tribulation lightning was the tribulation lightning that was formed from the power of tribulation sense. All they knew was that the power of the red tribulation lightning was too terrifying. Any one of them was enough to kill a life immortal realm cultivator. 10 of them could kill Du Zhen. 100 of them could kill Shek Kong. 1,000 of them could kill sense fragmentation. In the desolate land that was suppressed by the forbidden immortal force, one only needed 100 of them to kill an early thought fragmentation realm old monster. What is this lightning? Be it Mounz or old ancestor Jin Hua, each of the thought fragmentation realm old monsters in the third level of the heaven fault felt a chill run down their spines when they saw the red lightning above their heads. The number of the lightning increased. Eventually, there were 999 of them. All of a sudden, the 999 lightning bolts whistled and flew towards the 19th ancient path. They flew into the 78th palace and entered Ning Fan's body. At this moment, Ning Fan's tribulation blood had completely broken through the level of a 1-star true blood. At this moment, a demonic red talisman appeared on the back of Ning Fan's right hand. As soon as the talisman was activated, 999 tribulation lightning bolts coiled around Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan's ears were filled with the sound of wind and thunder. These tribulation lightning bolts are the abilities that the Taitsung tribulation spirit tribulation blood obtained after achieving minor completion. Ning Fan looked at the red tribulation lightning and muttered. With a thought, the scarlet talisman on the back of his right hand immediately went into hiding. The tribulation lightning bolts that coiled around his body also disappeared. As he activated the talisman again, the 999 tribulation lightning bolts appeared one after another. The power of these tribulation lightning bolts is very strong. I only need one lightning bolt to kill a life immortal realm cultivator. 10 tribulation lightning bolts are enough to kill an early truth realm cultivator. 100 tribulation lightning bolts are enough to kill an early void shedding realm cultivator. Today, I have 999 tribulation lightning bolts. With these tribulation lightning bolts, I can sweep across all void shedding realm experts. In this desolate land that is suppressed by the forbidden immortal force, I can even kill a peak thought fragmentation realm expert with just a raise of my hand. Is this the power of the Taitsung tribulation spirit? Ning Fan opened his mouth and swallowed all the 999 tribulation lightning bolts back into his body. Today, he had already become the young barbarian priest of the barbarian race. Today, he had broken through the bottleneck of the one-star true blood with the help of that drop of ancestral realm barbarian blood and achieved minor completion in his tribulation blood. The Taitsung tribulation spirit who achieved minor completion in his tribulation blood was already invincible in the void-shedding realm. Now that Ning Fan's tribulation blood had broken through to the one-star true blood, he was almost invincible in the void-shedding realm. The shadow of the young barbarian statue behind him gradually disappeared. Ning Fan suddenly stood up. His body was shrouded in red light. He walked out of the 78th palace and entered the 79th palace. In just a breath's time, Ning Fan passed the 79th palace and entered the 80th palace in a flash. In another breath's time, Ning Fan passed the 80th palace and entered the 81st palace. After entering the third level of the Heaven Fault, Ning Fan's speed of passing through the palaces had gradually slowed down. However, as his tribulation blood broke through and his strength improved tremendously, his speed of passing through the palaces once again increased to a terrifying speed. At the moment when Ning Fan became the young barbarian priest, the barbarian summoning technique that the 5 ancestors planted in his body was automatically broken. Even though the barbarian summoning technique was broken on its own, there would still be one more barbarian mark on Ning Fan's body every time he passed through a palace. After passing through the 82nd and 83rd palace, Ning Fan arrived at the 84th palace. The difficulty of passing through the 84th palace was a few times higher than the 83rd palace. No early thought fragmentation realm old monster could pass through this palace. Be it Mounz, old ancestor Jin Hua, or even the snake-haired old man who was severely injured by Ning Fan, none of them could go any further. The 84th palace corresponded to the 306th barbarian mark. At the moment when Ning Fan entered the 84th palace, he could already feel the heavy pressure that rushed towards him. He smiled faintly. 46, 96,156,226. Sure enough, the next number is 306. The pressure was extremely heavy, but Ning Fan was able to ignore it. In less than a breath's time, he had passed through the 84th palace. The moment he passed through the 84th palace, the number of barbarian marks on Ning Fan's body had reached 306. Barbarian blood was produced in his body once again. Whenever the number of barbarian marks reaches 100, a damage tribulation will descend. If I pass through the damage tribulation, my body will produce barbarian blood. If the number of barbarian marks reaches 46, 96, 156 and other specific numbers, barbarian blood will also be produced. Ning Fan's mind was racing. His feet didn't slow down at all as he passed through the palace at an extremely fast speed. My tribulation blood can increase my grade by devouring barbarian blood. Currently, my tribulation blood has already reached the level of 1-star true blood, but I wonder how much more barbarian blood I need to devour to break through to the 2-star true blood. With just the strength of my tribulation blood, I'm already invincible in the void abandoning realm. If I break through to the 2-star true blood, I wonder how much stronger I will become. Ning Fan passed through the 111th palace of the 3rd level of the Heavenly Fault very quickly. Ning Fan walked along the ancient bluestone path and reached the highest point of the 3rd level of the Sea of Clouds. Once again, the old man's voice resounded in his ears. You are, my true clansman. You are, the orthodox barbarian, my left hand is the barbarian, the life fire of all living beings, my right hand is the tribulation, the Tao of heaven and earth, the combination of tribulation and barbarian, is the barbarian god. You have gained something in the third level. I will not bestow you with any additional fortune. Come, my clansmen, come to the top of the heavenly fault. I will wait for you. Let me give you the blessing of the barbarian god. Chapter 9:18. While Ning Fan was pondering, circles of light from the teleportation formation lit up under his feet. Without further ado, he stepped into the formation and teleported to the fourth level of the heavenly palace. There were a total of 48 ancient paths made of green stones at the entrance of the fourth level. All of them could lead to the fifth level. In the fourth level, Ning Fan sensed the chi of 15 sense fragmentation old monsters. Most of them were at the mid or late sense fragmentation realm. Only a few of them were at the peak sense fragmentation realm. As for the mid and late sense fragmentation realm old monsters, most of them stopped at the 63rd palace of the fourth level. As for the peak sense fragmentation realm old monsters, even though they had the ability to pass the 63rd palace, their speed was as slow as a turtle's crawl. Only a few peak sense fragmentation realm old monsters could reach the fifth level of the heavenly palace. The corresponding number of barbarian marks in the 63rd palace of the fourth level is 396. After 306, it should be 396. This level is a challenge for the sense fragmentation realm old monsters. However, it's not difficult for me since I have attained minor accomplishment in the tribulation blood realm. However, the seventh ancestor isn't in the fourth level. He's in a higher level. So, I have to speed up. Ning Fan's eyes slightly narrowed. He did not forget his original purpose of coming to the Nine Heavens Palace. His original purpose was to take back the souls of 1 million barbarians from the seventh barbarian ancestor. He did not come here to try his luck. He had no intention of peeking at the ancient passageway in this place. His target was the seventh ancestor. With a sway of his body, he directly turned into a ray of dazzling red light and dashed towards the 27th ancient road. It was a path that was uninhabited. As soon as he stepped onto the ancient path, all 15 of the thought-fragmenting patriarchs sensed him, and sent their divine will in his direction. Due to the layers of clouds, these old monsters could not see Ning Fan's appearance clearly. Vaguely, they could only see a human figure dashing out in red light. That red light was enchanting and evil. Another thought fragmentation eccentric has entered the fourth level. Judging from his aura, he seemed to be an old monster of the human race. Hiss. What kind of divine ability was that red light? Why did it give this old man a soul-stirring feeling? No matter who this person is, he is definitely not someone this old man can provoke. An old monster of the demon race felt his heart skip a beat. He was a peak thought fragmentation realm old monster, but he actually could not withstand the grand heaven tribulation might of Ning Fan's great heaven tribulation might after his tribulation blood reached the minor success stage. Without a cultivation base at the mid-thought shatterer stage or above, it's impossible to enter the fourth level of the heavenly court. This person's chi isn't strong. On the surface, he seems to be much weaker than a mid-thought fragmentation realm old monster. Strange. Is he hiding his cultivation base? Or is he not a mid-thought fragmentation realm old monster but entered this level using a special method? Speaking of which, when he entered the fourth level, he didn't seem to have torn open the sky. How did he enter the fourth level? Some of the old monsters were filled with doubts. After a round of probing, the 15 old monsters gradually withdrew their spirit sense and stopped paying attention to Ning Fan. After all, they still had to explore the palaces themselves. It was impossible for them to pay attention to others all the time. Ning Fan did not have the intention to pay attention to others. He just wanted to rush to the fifth level as quickly as possible. In this fourth level where even peak thought fragmentation realm old monsters could not move an inch, he was actually able to pass through one palace after another at a terrifying speed. Ning Fan only used one breath to pass through the first palace. He also used one breath to pass through the second palace. The third palace, the fifth palace. Ning Fan only used less than a breath of time to pass through each of the palaces. The palaces constantly emitted dazzling divine light, plating layers upon layers of divine brilliance above the sea of clouds. Hiss! What kind of speed is this? This person only used one breath to pass through the palaces. One must know that this is the fourth level of the heavenly palace. The fourth level of the palaces is extremely difficult to pass. Even peak thought fragmentation realm old monsters would not be able to move an inch. This person's speed is only comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Could it be that this person is an ancient immortal venerable? Among the 15 thought fragmentation realm old monsters, 9 of them were old monsters of the demon race. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Almost all of them believed that Ning Fan was an ancient immortal venerable. They could sense the human chi that Ning Fan deliberately released from his body. They thought that this person was actually an ancient immortal venerable of the human race. He was not a 6 combos immortal venerable, nor was he immortal venerable Miao Yen. The 2 ancient immortal venerables of the human race had already ascended to the higher levels of the heavenly palace. Where did this person come from? Why would there be a 3rd ancient immortal venerable of the human race in the uncivilized world? Who is this ancient immortal venerable of the human race? Each of the old monsters of the demon race secretly guessed. Some of them even used a secret technique to inform the higher-ups of the heavenly palace. The 6 thought fragmentation realm experts of the human race on the 4th level of the heavenly palace were suddenly filled with excitement. Although the members of the demon race did not know the identity of the human race, they were able to guess Ning Fan's identity. If there is a 3rd ancient immortal venerable of the human race in the uncivilized world, it must be Senior Zhao Jian. I didn't expect that Senior Zhao Jian would also come to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. While the 6 of them were muttering, one of them used a secret technique to send a secret message to the higher-ups of the heavenly palace. Ning Fan moved forward silently, ignoring everything around him. His body seemed to have become one with the red light of the tribulation sense. Scarlet lightning kept flashing around his body. That was the lightning of the tribulation sense. Currently, he could easily defeat all the fragmentation realm old monsters in this place with just the power of his minor accomplishment tribulation blood. Only a few immortal venerables could suppress the power of his small success tribulation blood. The 6th palace, the 7th palace, the 8th palace. Ning Fan continued to advance through the palaces. His barbarian marks were also increasing one after another. He continued until he reached the 63rd palace. This palace was the place where the mid and late fragmentation realm old monsters would stop. However, it only took Ning Fan one breath to force his way through. The number of his barbarian marks had reached 396. Immediately, a small amount of barbarian blood appeared in his body. Devouring this barbarian blood did not have much effect on improving his tribulation blood. The 64th palace, the 65th palace. The 67th palace. The corresponding number of barbarian marks in this palace was 400. After advancing through this palace, Ning Fan's barbarian marks had reached 400. However, he did not receive the 4th tribulation. The 4th tribulation didn't descend? Ning Fan was slightly stunned. His expression turned solemn. When he became the young barbarian lord, he gained a lot of memories from the barbarian race's bloodline. He knew that the young barbarian lord who was promoted through the barbarian summoning technique would face 9 tribulations in total. Of course, one would be able to become the young barbarian lord after successfully overcoming the first 3 tribulations. However, if the number of barbarian marks in the young barbarian lord's barbarian marks continues to increase and they break through 100 barriers again, they would still face the next tribulations. According to the introduction of the bloodline, Ning Fan would face the 4th tribulation when his barbarian marks reach 400. However, the truth was that the 4th tribulation did not descend. If the 4th tribulation descends now, it won't be difficult for me to get through it with the purple python bone that I obtained. However, I don't know why the 4th tribulation didn't descend. Ning Fan flipped his hand and took out the purple python bone. There was still 90% of its life force left. He had only used 10% of its life force to get through the 3rd tribulation. He flipped his hand again and kept the python bone. After a moment of silence, he dashed out of the 67th palace and continued moving forward. Without the disturbance of the fourth tribulation, he naturally did not need to waste time in the 67th palace. The 68th palace, the 69th palace, the 70th palace, the 71st palace, Ning Fan went through 111 palaces and stepped on the teleportation formation under his feet, entering the 5th level of the heavenly palace. Strangely, the voice of the old man did not appear this time, just like the fourth tribulation that had disappeared. The Tongtian ancient emperor who was in the crimson passageway frowned and stared at the stone monument in front of him. Ning Fan's ranking on the monument had risen to the 9th place at an astonishing speed. The top 8 were respectively the 4 barbarian ancestors and the immortal venerables of the human race and the demon race. Ning Fan was the 9th place. His ranking did not have a name, but it was already impossible for the Tongtian ancient emperor to ignore it, the 9th place. Could this nameless cultivator really be an ancient cultivator? He entered the 9 heavenly palaces, the latest among all of us, but in just a short period of time, he has already surpassed all the broken sense-old monsters and entered the 5th level. The Tongtian ancient emperor stared at the giant monument. At this moment, Ning Fan's position was displayed as the 97th palace of the 4th level. Every breath, Ning Fan's position would change. In just 10 breaths, Ning Fan's position had changed to the 1st palace of the 5th level. According to my deduction, there should only be 8 ancient immortal venerables in this desolate land. Could it be that I've made a mistake? If this person is really the 9th immortal venerable, which race does he belong to? The human race? The demon race? Or perhaps, this person is one of the surviving barbarian ancestors. The Tongtian ancient emperor's brows were tightly knitted. He was used to having everything under control and hated changes. Perhaps, Ning Fan's sudden appearance would be a great change in the competition for the ancient passageway between the human race and the demon race. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, can you use your ability to confirm this person's cultivation base and race? The Tongtian ancient emperor asked Meng Xuanzi. This is very difficult, but if I can borrow 2 treasures from you, I have a 30% chance of detecting this person's cultivation base and race. Meng Xuanzi answered with a solemn expression. Oh. May I know what treasures fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi needs? Feel free to ask us. Many immortal emperors of the human race said. There were also some immortal emperors who remained silent and looked at Meng Xuanzi quietly. Meng Xuanzi hesitated for a moment and then cupped his fists at the 2 female emperors. I need to borrow the Fuli Bone Umbrella of the Zifu Academy and the 3rd Infusion Pearl of the Lost World Palace. I wonder if the 2 of you are willing to lend them to me. Hiss.as soon as Meng Xuanzi's voice fell, a few gasps could be heard from the crowd. The rest of the immortal emperors also wore solemn expressions. After all, the Fuli Bone Umbrella and the 3rd Infusion Pearl that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow were considered extremely precious treasures among the emperors of the 4 heavens. The Fuli Bone Umbrella was one of the most precious treasures of the Zifu Academy. Now, it was in the hands of immortal Emperor Zhang Jie. The 3rd Infusion Pearl was the most precious treasure of the Lost World Palace. It was also known as the heaven-suppressing treasure of the Northern Heaven. There were originally 10 of them. The first one was the weakest and the 10th one was the strongest. Among them, the 10th one was already destroyed for some reason. The 9 pearls were currently in the custody of the emperors of the Lost World Palace. The 3rd pearl was in the hands of the old ancestor of the Western Palace of the Lost World Palace. Upon hearing that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow these 2 treasures, immortal Emperor Zhang Jie stroked her hair with a calm expression and looked at Meng Xuanzi inquisitively. The Fuli Bone Umbrella was one of the most precious treasures of the Zifu Academy. It was not something that could be lent out easily. However, this matter was more important. If it was really necessary, she would not be stingy with her treasures. The old ancestor of the Western Palace of the Lost World Palace was an old woman in gray. She was the master of the palace master, Yuan Yao. Upon hearing that Meng Xuanzi wanted to borrow the 3rd Infusion Pearl, the old ancestor of the Western Palace immediately turned hostile despite her friendship with Meng Xuanzi. Meng Xuanzi. If you were to borrow any other treasure, this old woman would naturally lend it to you without hesitation. However, the infusion pearl is extremely important. If I were to lend it to you and something were to happen to it, this old woman would likely be at a disadvantage when competing with the Eastern Palace and Northern Palace in the future. This old woman will definitely not lend this treasure to you. The old ancestor of the Lost World Palace had always been an unreasonable person. Even though she had a good relationship with Meng Xuanzi, she could still turn hostile in a fit of anger. Meng Xuanzi smiled bitterly. He knew that the old ancestor of the Western Palace and the old ancestor of the Western Palace would not lend him their treasures so easily. He did not insist and only glanced at the Tongtian ancient emperor helplessly. With his reputation, it was not enough for him to borrow their treasures. However, if it was the Tongtian ancient emperor, the ancient passage is of great importance. No accidents can happen. Both of you, lend your treasures to Meng Xuanzi. If anything happens to the treasures, I will take responsibility. There were a total of 28 constellation ancient emperors in the Four Oceans sect. The Tongtian ancient emperor was the first ancient emperor of the Four Oceans sect and the leader of the sect. If he spoke, no one would dare to disrespect him except for the secret race. Since the Tongtian ancient emperor had spoken, the Palm Tribulation immortal emperor did not say anything else. She tore open her natal world and took out a purplish-black light. She did not know what it was and directly handed it to Meng Xuanzi. The old ancestor of the Western Palace had an ugly expression on her face. She was not as generous as the Palm Tribulation immortal emperor and was reluctant to lend her treasures. However, the Tongtian ancient emperor had already spoken. Even if she didn't want to, she didn't dare to refuse. Clenching her teeth, she tore open her life interface and took out a black pearl. It emitted a blinding light, as dazzling as a small sun. The third infusion pearl was not black. Only the third infusion pearl was black because it was tainted by the devil will. In addition to the third infusion pearl, I still have the sixth and seventh infusion pearls. The third infusion pearl is not as good as the other two pearls. It had fallen into the hands of the devil race in the ancient devil abyss and was tainted by the devil will. It is not a problem to lend this pearl to Meng Xuanzi since the Tongtian ancient emperor is here. Forget it. The old ancestor of the Western Palace had a gloomy expression. She handed the third infusion pearl to Meng Xuanzi and said, "Old man Meng Xuanzi, the third infusion pearl is now yours. You must use it carefully. The treasure has been given to you. Fellow Taoist Meng Xuanzi, please use your technique quickly. This old man wants to see the origin of that nameless cultivator." The Tongtian ancient emperor urged. Meng Xuanzi nodded and summoned the two treasures in his hand. They turned into rays of light and entered the steel. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and murmured. With the help of the two treasures, he had a 30% chance of discovering Ning Fan's origin. However, it would take a lot of time for him to sense it. At the same time, the true dragon patriarch of the demon race was frowning like the Tongtian ancient emperor. He stared at the leather curtain summoned by the monster Gui. Above the curtain, there was a red figure that flashed past from time to time. It was very blurry and he couldn't see the appearance of the red figure clearly. He could only vaguely see the figure flying past, the first level of the heavenly palace, the second level, the third level, the fourth level. Now, that red figure had entered the fifth level of the heavenly palace. Strange. According to this old man's deduction, there shouldn't be a ninth immortal venerable in the current 9 heavenly palace. But this person can go all the way to the fifth level. His speed is comparable to an ancient immortal venerable. Could this person be an unforeseen event that this old man missed? The true dragon patriarch's character was more gloomy compared to the Tongtian ancient emperor. However, there was a similarity between the two of them. That was, he hated changes in his plan. His eyes turned gloomy. Then, he said to the monster Gui. "Is there a way to make the projection on the curtain clearer? If this person is the 9th immortal venerable, this old man must know who he is." The monster Gui's face turned pale and said with a wry smile. "It won't work. I've tried my best. It's too difficult to see who he is, it doesn't matter. I'll lend this to you. The true dragon patriarch pondered for a while. Suddenly, he tore open the void and took out an illusory fog. It was in the shape of a bow. With a flick of his finger, the object was passed to the monster Gui. When the great emperors of the demon race saw the true dragon patriarch take out the object, their expressions changed drastically. If they weren't mistaken, this illusory mist was actually quintessence energy. The origin chi was the key to breaking through to the third step saint realm. There were 3 kinds of origin chi, which were the origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi. Therefore, the great emperors of the 4 heavens often called the origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi. The origin chi, nirvana chi, and desolate origin chi were the key to breaking through to the third step of cultivation. Unfortunately, the amount of origin chi needed to break through to the third step was too large. One of the important reasons why there was no saint in the 4 heavens was that there was not enough origin chi. One of the important reasons why the old monsters of the 4 heavens wanted to enter the ancient passageway and enter the heaven desolate ancient realm was to obtain a large amount of origin chi and enter the third step of cultivation. If the candle bow's bow spirit was here, it would probably curse the true dragon patriarch when he took out the illusory fog. The candle bow's bow spirit had once followed the ancestral dragon to conquer the world and killed countless experts. It was rewarded by the ancestral dragon which gave it some origin chi. Unfortunately, the current true dragon patriarch boldly refined the origin chi in the candle bow's bow spirit. That was why the candle bow's bow spirit became even weaker. If the true dragon patriarch did not take away the origin chi of the candle bow's bow spirit, with its strength, it might have killed Ning Fan on that day instead of being captured by Ning Fan. I'll lend you this origin chi. I hope that this time, you can completely reflect the appearance of that red figure. The true dragon patriarch said to the monster Gui in a deep voice. His expression contained a hint of warning. The origin chi could be devoured and refined. It could also be used to perform divine abilities. If it was used to perform divine abilities, it could greatly increase the power of those divine abilities. If it was devoured and refined, it could greatly improve a cultivator's cultivation base. The monster Gui's face turned pale again. She understood the true dragon patriarch's warning. She definitely would not dare to devour and refine the origin chi without permission. She only dared to use the origin chi to perform divine abilities. The true dragon patriarch would not ask her how much she used. As for the remaining origin chi, she still had to return it to him. If she dared to devour even a little bit of the origin chi without permission, she was afraid that she would immediately incur the wrath of the true dragon patriarch. With the help of the origin chi, I will definitely be able to project the appearance of that red figure. The monster Gui gave the true dragon patriarch a promise. Then, she immediately sat on the ground with her legs crossed and performed hand seals to perform her technique. While the human emperors were trying to investigate Ning Fan, the demon race was also doing the same. Ning Fan was unaware of all of this. At this moment, he was running at full speed on the 5th floor of the heavenly palace. There was not a single person on the 5th floor. According to Ning Fan's estimation, he probably would not encounter any thought-severing old monsters at his current height. If he were to encounter someone, it would be either the ancient immortal venerables of the human race or the barbarian ancestors. It seems like I'm about to catch up with the 7th ancestor. When he reached the 5th floor of the heavenly palace, he could not help but slow down even though his strength had increased tremendously. The aura force of each palace was enough to make the ancient immortal venerables look askance. Even though Ning Fan could defeat all the thought-severing old monsters in the desolate world where the immortal prohibition force was active, the difference between his strength and that of the ancient immortal venerables was like heaven and earth. After all, the strength of the ancient immortal venerables was not suppressed by the immortal prohibition force. It took Ning Fan 10 breaths to break through the first palace of the 5th floor. It took him 15 breaths to break through the second palace. When he reached the 10th palace, it took him 50 breaths to clear it. The further he progressed, the more difficult it became. When he reached the 20th palace and above, he actually felt that it was difficult for him to move an inch forward. Even though his current strength was much stronger than the thought-severing old monsters here, he was still too far away from the ancient immortal venerables. The other ancient immortal venerables could easily break through the 5th floor of the heavenly palace and enter the 6th floor. However, he could not do that. So I can only rely on the power of my magic treasures. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. He took out the memory-severing Dao sword and placed it around him to protect himself. He tried to use the power of his magic treasure to resist the aura force of the 9 heavenly palaces and increase his speed of advancement. Unfortunately, as soon as the memory-severing Dao sword appeared, it was shattered into bits of purple qi by the aura force of the 9 heavenly palaces. It could not withstand the aura force of this place at all. The memory-severing Dao sword was a Dao weapon. Although its form was shattered, it was not destroyed. However, it could not help Ning Fan to clear the palaces because its current level was not high enough. With a wave of his hand, Ning Fan took out a few 5 Nirvana and 6 Nirvana acquired magic treasures. However, these magic treasures could not help him withstand the aura force of this place either. If I can take out the steel of sun and moon from the profound Yin world, it will certainly be able to withstand the aura force of this place with its innate power, allowing me to enter the 6th floor of the heavenly palace with ease. Unfortunately, my cultivation base is not high enough. I can't take it out from the profound Yin world. Even though that purple gourd is an innate item, it isn't a true innate treasure after all. I can't use it to withstand the aura force of this place. As for the other magic treasures, their levels aren't high enough to help me catch up to the 7th ancestor. As expected, this is the only thing that I can use. Ning Fan suddenly moved forward. Immediately, dozens of 6-colored and 7-colored arrow shadows flew out from his body. Ning Fan only had one 7-colored arrow left. However, he still had many 6-colored arrows. In the past, Ning Fan's strength was only enough to shoot 3 6-colored arrows at the same time. Even so, he could already injure the barbarian ancestor who was at the immortal venerable realm. Now, Ning Fan's strength had improved greatly. According to his estimation, it would not be difficult for him to shoot 5 consecutive arrows at the same time. If he shoots 5 arrows at the same time, he was afraid that it would be enough to severely injure the barbarian ancestor. Even though these 7-colored arrows were not true magic treasures and were just arrows condensed from the incense flames of slaughter, they immediately helped Ning Fan block most of the aura force of the palaces. Ning Fan felt the aura force on his body lighten. With that, he could once again climb to the upper floor of the heavenly palace at an extremely fast speed. When he took out the 7-colored arrows, he naturally took out the bow spirit of the candle bow as well. In the past, the bow spirit of the candle bow helped Ning Fan kill the barbarian ancestor. However, until today, Ning Fan still did not lend the candle bow his purple gourd. Logically speaking, the bow spirit of the candle bow should be full of complaints. With its talkative personality, it would probably nag incessantly as soon as Ning Fan summons it out. However, when Ning Fan took out the bow spirit of the candle bow today, it did not say a single word. It was as quiet as an obedient child. Oh. Has this bow spirit changed its personality today? It actually didn't nag me anymore. Ning Fan was slightly surprised, but his eyes were filled with curiosity. The bow spirit of the candle bow was still as quiet as before. At this moment, it naturally would not divert its attention to talk to Ning Fan. It sensed its own opportunity. It found a chance to escape from Ning Fan's evil clutches. Soon. That old bastard Ao Qiangu actually used this item. Hee. Great. This is really great. The bow spirit of the candle bow tried its best to suppress the urge to laugh wildly in its heart. It did not want Ning Fan to see the changes in its mind. That Ao Qiangu is the descendant of the ancestral dragon and the current leader of the true dragon clan in vain. In the past, he actually dared to take away my origin chi. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been captured by this malefic star and I wouldn't have been unable to break free from the seal that he planted on me. The bow spirit of the candle bow was filled with resentment. However, when it thought of the future, it began to beam with joy and become extremely wretched. I didn't expect that this stupid old man still hasn't refined my origin chi. This time, he even used this item to cast a technique in order to scheme against this little malefic star. If it was someone else, they certainly wouldn't be able to sense it. However, that origin chi came from me. I can feel it. Hee hee. It's very close. Very close. Wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. I will certainly have the chance to take back this origin chi. Once I do, it will be easy for me to break free from the seal and escape from the evil clutches of that malefic star. From then on, I can go anywhere in the world. I can have all the beauties in the world. I can be as lonely as snow. This old man is finally going to be free. Once I escape from the evil clutches of this malefic star, I will definitely make him beg for death. Well, it's better not to do that. It's never a good thing to encounter this malefic star. If I manage to escape, it's better to keep a low profile and run away quietly. Yes, that's how it should be. The Bao spirit of the candle Bao was secretly devising an escape plan. When Ning Fan arrived at the 33rd palace of the 5th floor with the help of the incense arrows, the sea of clouds suddenly separated into two sides. At the same time, 3 rays of light formed 3 different colored clouds and swept towards Ning Fan. In the northern clouds, one could vaguely see the huge shadow of a purplish-black bone umbrella. In the eastern clouds, one could vaguely see a black sun that was slowly rising. In the southern clouds, there were clouds of mist that seemed to be both real and illusory. It was constantly emitting a heavy aura that could make any cultivator who saw it feel solemn. Sure enough, it's this old man's origin chi. But, why is there someone else casting a technique on this malefic star? There won't be any accidents, right? The Bao spirit of the candle Bao suddenly became nervous. He finally found a chance to escape and he didn't want to miss it. This is. Just as Ning Fan walked out of the 33rd palace and stepped on the ancient bluestone path, his expression suddenly changed and he raised his head. North, east and south. 3 kinds of vast chi were crazily coming towards him from 3 directions. A huge pressure suddenly pressed down on him. Even with Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he felt a sharp pain in his chest and immediately retreated frantically. Only after retreating 10 steps on the ancient bluestone path did he manage to stabilize his body. However, it was still difficult for him to withstand the pressure from 3 directions at the same time. At this moment, the human race and demon race simultaneously activated their divine abilities to investigate Ning Fan. They wanted to find out the origin of Ning Fan. Someone is spying on me.